Welcome to Ichiraku Ramen, and thank you for joining me for another journey into the world of shinobi. Before we begin, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who listens, supports the channel, and enjoys these stories. Today's story is the final part of The Burning Bone. In this what-if scenario, Naruto Uzumaki watches his shinobi career vanish after failing the Genin exam, until the sudden death of a recent graduate opens up a single, unexpected slot. Refusing to look back, Naruto takes the spot and sets out to prove everyone wrong. But there's a catch. Naruto unlocks one of the most lethal and feared abilities in the shinobi world, the Shikatsumiyaku, Dead Bone Pulse, Kekkai Genkai. Lemon's warning. This story contains lemon scenes for mature audiences. This is a fan-made story inspired by the world of Naruto. All characters in the original universe belong to their respective creators. This narration is created for entertainment purposes as part of a transformative storytelling experience. The story itself was written by Ninjaa, and full credit goes to the original author. If you would like to read the original version, the link to this story is included in the video description below. If you like my content and want to keep up with future updates, hit that subscribe button and don't forget leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It not only helps me but helps with YouTube algorithm. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. Chapter 17, And I Will Make a Wish. Naruto came to the sight of Asuma-sensei duking it out in a vicious kenjutsu fight. Blood was falling from both combatants. Zabuza also had a few burn marks on his body which Naruto imagined came from the katan, Heizukisho, fire release, ash pile burning, jutsu. As he watched the two fight from a distance, Naruto knew that he had to get this right. At the moment, it was currently a one-on-one fight and Zabuza didn't know that Haku was dead. Naruto was currently caught in two minds as he watched the fight. Whilst there was a mission to complete, Naruto also didn't want to go after Gato whilst Asuma-sensei was still in danger. Whilst he was confident that his sensei could hold his own as they were both medium to high A-ranked ninjas in the bingo book, Naruto didn't want to lose his sensei. The man was the closest thing he had ever had to a father, and with having lost Ino and Choji to the daimyo's guard for 2 years. That was certainly painful enough. He didn't want to lose Asuma for life. He didn't know what that would do to him psychologically. On the other hand, this was still an S-ranked mission and it meant that it needed to be successful at all costs. Danzo-sensei would certainly be displeased if the mission was not completed. What made Naruto's mind up was the fact that after Zabuza was dead, both he and Asuma could search for Gato together. Naruto was not a censor by any means and wasn't the greatest at tracking general. He knew where his limits were and knew when to turn to others for help. The blonde figured that with his opponent being insanely proficient in the art of the silent kill, he would have honed senses. There was no point trying to be stealthy, so he would have to make an all-out dash. Now, Naruto thought to himself as he sprinted forward, Katan chakra running through his muscles, and prepared a Rasengan in his hand. Admittedly, it wasn't as quick or as powerful as the ones that Jiraiya could make, but ever since learning about the history of the jutsu, Naruto wanted to get more proficient at the jutsu. He wanted to complete it. "Sensei! Dodge!" Naruto called out at the last possible moment, and launched the hand holding the Rasengan in his hand as quickly as possible. Zabuza also heard the same words of Asuma and attempted to dodge the incoming attack. Attempted. Naruto managed to graze the side of Zabuza's abdomen, and blood started coming out. It was faster than any cut he had received today. "I guess that we're both even now, Zabuza, having lost a student," Asuma said with a smirk adorning his face. He had been wanting to say that for a long time so that Zabuza could feel the same pain that he had to suffer through. "TCH. That tool was nothing to me. He is of no more use. Nothing more." Whilst he shouldn't be surprised given the man's history, Asuma was shocked and appalled at what he heard. Naruto shared the same opinion of his sensei. "Wow, you seriously are cunt of a human being." His last words were how sorry he was for not helping you more as tears were coming down his face. "You are fucked," Zabuza grunted. He didn't want to admit to either of these pathetic tree fuckers that Naruto's words had struck a nerve in the man. The former Miss Shinobi was just about to rush forward and slice the two enemy ninjas off. He heard 3 incoming noises. He definitely hoped that these people were not after him. Well, this is definitely unexpected. I never would have expected to find Zabuza-san here. This changes things. The man murmured to himself. Stars lit up in the one of the boy's eyes as shark-like teeth appeared from his mouth. Zabuza-senpai! Suigetsu shouted out in glee. Chojuro was nervous, looking at one of the former members of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. Zabuza was always the second strongest behind Kisame. Ayo, what are you doing here with those 2 no less? Did the orangutan let you off her leash to come out to the mainland? Zabuza grunted. Ayo frowned. He definitely didn't like the insult thrown his way. Back in my day, Zabuza, you would show your superiors respect. Chojuro meanwhile stammered as he realized who Zabuza meant when he used the word orangutan. Mesama. In case you haven't noticed, I haven't been a Kiri shinobi in more than a decade. If you don't have anything important to say, can you kindly get fucked so I can butcher these tree huggers? Zabuza said with a pissed-off expression on his face. It was clear to see that he was never one for authority. Well, unfortunately, Zabuza, we can't let you kill that boy right there. Also, Yagura is no longer in charge of Kiri. That definitely made the eyebrows of Zabuza rise, if he had any. What, Shelly ain't in charge anymore? Who is it now then? Chojuro couldn't help but gape in shock when he heard yet another insult being flung. This time it was at their former Kage no less. Yes. Yagura has been killed. Mei Terumi is now our Mizukage as she led the rebels in the defeat of the Yondaime. Against my request, she has informed me that should I ever meet you, you are free to come back to Kirigakure, pardoned of all your outstanding crimes. Ayo said with distaste in his mouth. He was very much a stickler for the rules and thought Zabuza should pay for attempting to murder the Mizukage, despite the fact that he was a tyrant who needed be stopped. Wow, Carrot Top is now the Mizukage! And she defeated Yagura! I'm fucked then. What happens if I refuse? The man holding the meat cleaver questioned, weighing up his options. Damn. Mei must have gotten real strong if she managed to take down Yagura. She's changed from when I last saw her. We will be forced to reclaim back the Kubikuribocho. That would normally not be a threat to Zabuza, but given the state he was in and also that he had 2 enemies with one having just taken down Haku. Well, it seems like I don't have any choice in the matter now, do I? Naruto! We have to retreat. We will not be able to take these 3 new shinobi as well as Zabuza. Asuma called out to his student, who nodded. The 2 Konoha ninjas looked at one another and nodded. Both of them immediately went through hand seals. Ayo noticed this and immediately sprinted forward, hoping to stop them before their jutsu could take effect. He had seen the blood on the outfits of both Asuma and Naruto and made a judgment call. Katan, Heizukisho, fire release, ash pile burning. The 2 called out as the cloud of ash left their lungs and entered the air. They immediately blew it up right when Ayo started to dart back, but it was too late for the veteran shinobi. The cloud exploded in flames, burning anything that was touching it. Ayo wasn't, but he was close to it. Searing flames jutted out at Ayo and everything was free game. Luckily for the man, most of his body was covered in thick clothing which prevented his skin from taking the heat immediately. His face was not so lucky. The flames hit the man's face, and the intense heat caused blisters the moment that they came in contact. The eye patch that he was wearing that protected his Byakugan wasn't the most flame-resistant, and damage was done to the eye below. Quickly, Ayo got rid of the eye patch and used a water jutsu to put out the rest of the flames on his body. When that was done, he ordered Chojuro to come over and use the little medical ninjutsu that he knew. Damn. The area is saturated with chakra from the smog they still left up. I can't get a good read on them. We still have orders to follow from the Mizukage. We will locate Raiga and reclaim the Lightning Fangs, Ayo said with distaste. He did not like losing, but he knew he had a mission to complete which was more important to their economy and future. Naruto and Asuma were panting as they rushed through the wave countryside, back to where Inoichi was. Since he was the censor, He was their best chance at making out of this place alive. The fact that he was also a Jonin helped out immensely. 5 minutes after their little run-in with the Miss Shinobi, Naruto and Asuma had made it to Inoichi's location. They quickly met up with the man and briefed him on what was happening. "Right," the man said before appearing to concentrate for a few moments. "I can feel where the fight was. You two deposited a fair amount of chakra. We are northeast from that location and they are headed southwest towards Fire Country. I believe that they have another mission or they don't think it is feasible to chase after you." Naruto breathed a sigh of relief. "Unfortunately, I didn't get to secure the body of the Hayatan user to bring back to Konoha for testing. Also, it is safe to believe that Gato is still out there because neither of us confirmed the kill," Naruto commented, which Asuma nodded in regards to the Gato front. "Whilst it is part of our mission to kill the man, he is not the primary objective. Our primary objective was inserting Tazuna as the daimyo of Wave Country and use this as a military leverage point. With the bridge being built and Tazuna becoming the daimyo, he can force Gato out of the country, and that can be done through the purchase of a mission. Gato will know that Konoha is after his life so that he won't show up here or in Fire Country if he knows what is good for him." "So what's the plan now, Inoichi-senpai?" Naruto questioned to the man who was his former teammate's father. "We will stay low. The town doesn't need to know we are here. Once we can confirm that the Miss Shinobi have left the island, which I will be able to do, we will then eliminate all of the bandits in the area. Finally, we will help Tazuna and his government seize control of all of Gato's assets here and return them to the country. Finally, when that is all done, we will await the other squad coming from Konoha. They will be responsible for guarding the daimyo and his people as well as setting up a military base here to protect the people. The team, I believe, is 1 Jonin, 2 Chunin and 3 Genin," Inoichi stated, to which Naruto nodded. On the other side of the elemental nations, both Ino and Choji were coming back from their mission just south of Land of Earth border with Land of Grass. Both were tired but relieved as they had successfully completed their escort mission of controversial documents that needed to be secure. They had encountered enemy ninjas, but it wasn't something that they couldn't handle. Choji was especially pleased with how the mission went as he got to field test the new jutsu he had been working on over the past month, and it worked successfully. Looking at her teammate, Ino was definitely impressed with the amount of growth she had seen in her teammate. Choji had grown a fair amount, hitting his growth spurt pretty much straight after arriving in the capital of Fire Country. This was combined with the realization that he used the token Akimichi excuse that his fat powered his jutsus. Whilst it was definitely true that the extra fat on the body did help use the jutsu, it was exaggerated. Choji came to the conclusion that he was using the excuse as a reason to not look after his weight. The Chunin started taking more care of his diet to not eat what he didn't need, and with the combination of this and his growth spurt, Choji's physique had changed quite significantly. He no longer had a gut and man boobs. He instead had a thin layer of fat covering his body, which showed that he had serious muscle underneath for his age. He wasn't bulky and he wasn't ripped. He was the same size as Naruto, just bigger proportionately. This increase in muscle, thanks to the change in diet and training, allowed the boy to maintain his strength but drastically increased the speed he was able to move at. In addition to this, he had also gotten rid of the underwear, bandana, on top of his head and also discarded the scarf. Now that he didn't have the double chin, he had no need to wear the scarf. It wasn't just his taijutsu that had improved significantly. His ninjutsu repertoire had also increased. His proficiency with Doton manipulation had increased, where he now had completed the first stage of nature transformation proficiency. With that completed, Choji was able to now experiment. Ever since he had seen Naruto talking about combining his bloodline with his element, Choji wanted to try it for himself. Naruto's jutsus had changed for the better into new and improved jutsus, and he hoped that the same thing would happen to his own. The very proof was in the jutsu that he had used to finish off the enemy of their most recent mission. As Ino looked at Choji with admiration, she didn't realize that he was looking at with that same admiration. Her skills had improved quite substantially over the 3 months, and that was not progressing at all in her family techniques. Because her clan techniques involved the brain, she had to be supervised by an experienced member of the clan before she could learn the techniques. There was no room for error whatsoever, as it could do untold damage to one's psyche. This forced Ino to have to branch out. Thanks to the resources available at the palace, Ino did not have a shortage of material to train in. The blonde knew that she was never going to be a taijutsu monster like Naruto, or to a lesser extent Choji. This meant that she would have to come up with some other way to win fights, as the majority of them were fought in the close to mid-range zones. Thus entered her new best friend, her wakizashi blade. It suited her in that it kept shinobi far enough away that they couldn't engage in taijutsu, but also wasn't as long and as heavy as a katana. Every morning, Ino would go through her katas as she tried to get as proficient as possible with the blade. Thanks to the numerous samurai on offer, it allowed to get a good teacher each and every morning and the group training facility. Having decided almost immediately that she was going to wield the blade with one hand, Ino worked on her ninjutsu and chakra control, wanting it to get to the point where she could use one-handed seals. That would make her a lot more combat ready. She already had an idea in mind of combining her kenjutsu with genjutsu to distract her opponents, and then use her blade to finish them off. It was in the beginning stages, but she could see a future with it. In addition to this, Ino had been drastically increasing the amount of physical conditioning she was doing each day. She was getting fitter day by day and could now keep up with some of the more experienced members of the Guardian Ninjas. That wasn't even the best bit. The best bit was that because of all the hard work she was putting into diet and exercise, she looked and felt the best she ever had. Her clothes fit her better, and as far as she was concerned, she was growing in all the right places, not any extra. Another thing that Ino realized about herself, and was trying to remedy, was her chakra efficiency. She was trying to make her reserves as large as possible since they were pitiful. In addition to this, she was trying to get even more efficient using the chakra that she already had. Her reserves were upper Genin level, but her chakra control was Jonin level already. She didn't know how she was going to use this to her advantage, but she had heard that Tsunade-sama increased her strength thanks to insanely good chakra control. Maybe she could do something similar, like increase her speed. You were manipulating the same muscles, just slightly different. I wonder how Naruto is doing? Ino questioned, which broke Choji out of his trance. Normally, she would think that the person was staring at her body, but with Choji, it was different. He was her brother in everything but blood. I dunno, Ino-chan. I bet he is improving just like us and going on missions collecting those paychecks. Those milk cartons have his face on them, so I am sure he is getting paid a pretty penny, which should make him happy, Choji stated. He couldn't hate on his friend? He didn't come from the underprivileged background that Naruto did, so he couldn't judge his friend despite thinking his money obsessions was a slight bit unhealthy. Maybe when we get back to Konoha, he can shout us dinner at the most expensive restaurant with all that money he has lying around, Ino grumbled. It was clear to Choji that she was still sore about the way that the team broke up 3 months ago. He was too, but he didn't think that throwing their ex-teammate's name around like that would help bring the team back together when they met up again. True, but I think we could have told him beforehand that we got the offer. Maybe then the outcome would have been different, Choji stated, trying to be the peacemaker. If we told him, then his answer would have changed. At least this way, we know what his true feelings were. I mean, I never would have thought that Naruto would have turned down money for friends. I guess you were right in that we could have handled things better that day, Ino replied with a sigh. Hey, look on the bright side, Ino. She looked at Choji weirdly, urging him to continue. I am sure that there are things about how we left that he regrets. In fact, I bet that when we meet up again, it will be awkward at first, but we will go back to being good friends. I wished I shared that same enthusiasm. Ino wistfully sighed. They had a long time until they returned home. They had completed 3 months of their 2-year commitment, and the Yamanaka would be lying to herself if she hadn't been thinking of the decision to leave Konoha every night she had been here. Naruto awoke to a knock at the door. Curious as to whom it was, the blonde-haired boy quickly got changed and walked over to the door. He at least wanted to be presentable in case it was a mission. Oh, it's just you. Affronted, Jiraiya responded back. A midget, what's that supposed to mean? The man said with a scowl on his face. It didn't reach his eyes, though. I quickly had to get dressed in case it was someone saying that I had a mission ready for me. Then I found out that it was only you. You're looking at a S-rank ninja kid, you should count your lucky stars that one is interested in you. Jiraiya gruffly stated. Well, sure, you might have that title in the bingo book, but you haven't yet shown me anything above a B-rank ninja at best. Naruto replied, not wanting to make the man's ego any bigger than it was. Is that a challenge I am hearing? I am going to take that as a challenge. Just like my self-appointed mission to make you a pervert. No. No, 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 no. I want to be cool like Asuma-sensei, not you / Naruto was backpedaling. He knew what Jiraiya's reputation was like and he didn't want a part of it. You think the little shit flinger is cool? TCH, a gaki like you could learn more than a few things from a man of wisdom like me. Jiraiya said with a grin on his face as he came and sat down on the only seat in Naruto's tiny apartment. Coming from someone whose face looks a little rapey, I think I will take my chances. So is there anything I can get you, water? Naruto replied with a grin. He's got the quick thinking of Minato and the sass of Kushina. I'm sure you guys would be proud of him. Just water, thanks. We have a few things we need to talk about. Some of which you probably already know. Hearing the seriousness in way that Jiraiya was speaking, Naruto had a rough idea where the next conversation was going to go. The blonde gave Jiraiya a glass and held on to his own as he sat at the table chair. So what is it that you want to speak to me about? Kakashi told me that he told you about your ancestry. Naruto, I just wanted to say first and foremost that they would both be proud who you have become. Jiraiya earnestly stated, which made Naruto a little bit uncomfortable. He hadn't seen the man act like this before, and it was a little weird. Thank you? Naruto thought for a moment, wondering whether or not to be blunt or dance around the truth. In the end he decided that the best way to get answers was by being direct. What I want to know, though, is from what Kakashi was telling me, you were very close to my father. How come I never met you until after the Chunin exams? Jiraiya hung his head in shame. Most of it is my fault, but some of it is the blame of Sarutobi-sensei. After the death of your father, someone who I viewed as a son, I drowned my sorrows in drugs, prostitutes, and alcohol. It took me 5 years to get over everything that happened. As I was doing this, I was also running counterintelligence as Konoha had been hit hard by the Kyuubi attack and couldn't appear weak, or the Third Shinobi War would restart all over again. Jiraiya shook his head. The truth of the matter was I wasn't in a fit state to raise you mentally and emotionally and left you in the hands of Sarutobi-sensei, hoping that you would get better care than what you would have done if you were with me. In all honesty, Naruto couldn't fault Jiraiya for becoming depressed with the death of his son, but that still didn't justify the man from running away from his problems. Jiraiya saw this look and spoke up once more. One thing you will quickly realize the more time you spend being a ninja is that no one is perfect, especially not the ones that get idolized. Naruto frowned. That explains the first 5 years of my life, but what about the rest? Why didn't you visit me then? I don't want to blame others, but Sarutobi-sensei forbade me for visiting you. With you looking like a carbon copy of your father and hanging around me, it would have made the Konoha populace start to question your origins, which was something that we couldn't have come out to the public. At the time, you weren't strong enough to be able to defend yourself against half of IWA, which will be breathing down your neck for the rest of your life. Naruto could definitely see his point. After what happened in Wave Country with the Mist Village wanting to kidnap him, he knew the threat of assassins was very real. I can see why you guys did it, but it doesn't seem fair for some reason. No, it isn't. I think that Sarutobi-sensei also forbade me from visiting you because he was salty at Minato. Why would he be like that? Naruto questioned, not sure what he was missing. Jiraiya took a sip from the glass. Well, now that sensei is dead, I think it is okay if I break a few S-class secrets. Naruto's eyes widened in shock when he heard this. He repositioned himself on the edge of his seat, eager to hear what the Toad Sage had to say. Your mother Naruto was the previous Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. I believe this combined with the DNA of the Yondaime was enough to produce the bloodline in you, or at least, that is the best conclusion I have come to. See, your father's ancestors originated from the Mist Village. How does this affect the Sandaime disliking me by proxy? Well, a Jinchuriki's seal is weakest at birth. Jiraiya noticed the look of horror that overtook Naruto's face, and quickly acted upon it. Don't worry. Minato was a seal master, so nothing bad would have happened. Then what happened that night? Naruto asked Jiraiya. The fact that he was being given just weren't adding up. Jiraiya paused for a minute. That's the question I have been asking myself for the past 1.5 decades. Not a day goes by where I don't lose sleep on thinking about that night. Someone must have interfered with the process and forced the Kyuubi to come out of the seal. From there, your father made a choice when it came to who the new Kyuubi Jinchuriki was going to be. He had a choice of making you it or making Konohamaru it. I believe that Minato made the choice to seal it into Konohamaru as he thought that with the support network available, he would have better chance at not getting treated badly, unlike you who would be an orphan. Yeah, I've seen the occasional looks and whispers that he gets. I can imagine if they were a lot more frequent and vocal about it directed at me, it would have been hard to not get angry about it. That's my opinion on it as well. Sarutobi didn't share that opinion though. Both Kushina and Minato made me your godfather, and I would have loved to be there more for you when you were younger. Jiraiya freely admitted. Naruto could see the raw emotion in the eyes of the man in front of him. He wasn't sure what to say. Admittedly, Naruto still had some negative feelings, but he could see that Jiraiya was honest when it came to his flaws and could see the man was trying to repair the situation. Well, there's no use crying about the past because it doesn't help anyone, and only makes us shittier people. You owe me though. The grin on the face of Jiraiya couldn't have been any bigger. Thanks, Naruto, you don't know how much that means to an old man me. Jiraiya said with a small smile. Naruto wasn't sure, but it almost looked as if he was going to leak a few tears. A moment later, Jiraiya sprung out of his chair. Now we got all that sappy shit out of the way, we get to do the fun stuff. Come with me, kid, and I will show you something pretty amazing. Jiraiya said before placing his hand on Naruto's shoulder, and then vanishing in a cloud of leaves. Naruto and Jiraiya arrived at a desolate place, that medium-sized hedge surrounding the land. What's this place? Naruto asked with curiosity. This place is the Uzumaki compound. Originally, you were going to be told when you made Jonin or turned 18, whichever came first, but now with there being no Hokage to enforce the rules, I thought I might show you this. My clan, it has a compound? Naruto asked in bewilderment. Everything that he had read pointed towards there being no clan compound. Well, not until recently they didn't, but I kind of did my magic. Jiraiya replied with a smirk on his face. What did you do? The blonde questioned with a little bit of fear. Well, you know how I am super rich, right? When he saw that Naruto nodded, he continued on. Well, I am not as rich as I once was. The gears turned inside the mind of Naruto, only coming to one conclusion. You bought the land here? But this isn't a good area, and how much did you buy? This would have costed a small fortune. I bought 10 acres. Naruto's eyes nearly bugged out of their head. How did you manage to do that? Surely this land would have already been on sale since it's in a good area. Jiraiya couldn't keep the smirk off of his face. Well, this was previously part of some other clan compound, but they sold it to me when I gave them an offer that was too good to turn down. With Naruto looking at him expectantly, he continued on. After the Chunin exams, I went to Tsunade, my former teammate, and bought a third of the land of the Senju. She agreed to it since she's massively in debt, and her clan is virtually extinct anyway. As far as she was concerned, it was a win-win scenario for her. You mean? Naruto questioned, struggling to believe what he thought he had just heard. Jiraiya nodded. Yagaki, think of this as a belated birthday present for all the years that have gone by. Hopefully this repairs some of the damage. Wow, thanks Kyofu. Naruto mumbled as he stared at the land in front of him. Can we have a look inside? Sure thing, Naruto. Just follow me. Jiraiya said as he gave Naruto a tour of the new Uzumaki clan grounds. Naruto took particular interest in the temple that had been laid to ruin, especially when Jiraiya stated that this was the location that he was going to be born in if everything went to plan that night. Immediately, as he was processing all of this information, Naruto had an idea forming in his head. He knew what he wanted to do with the money that he was earning. He wanted to restore the temple to its former glory. In addition to this, Naruto wanted to redesign the gardens that had been trampled on the Kyuubi long ago. He could still see the damage that had been done which no one had bothered to clean up. It would take a long time, but it was something he was keen to do. If only Ino was around. She would have loved to have had a hand in designing all of the gardens. Gato was furious. He had lost a lot of money. He lost $3 million in the space of 5 minutes, lost control over his company and got kicked out of a country which was making so much money for him. All of this, as far as he was concerned, was because of shinobi villages. He may be a coward, but he was a smart man. He had learned his lesson in not dealing with shinobi villages head on. He had also learned that there was more to life than money. He was going to take his time and survey his options, but Gato was hooked. Messing around with shinobi was something that he was not going to give up on. The idea of having a village backing him definitely sounded good. Chapter 18, Take a Chance. Man, this essay is no joke. Naruto mumbled to himself at the table in his apartment. He had already written 6 pages of his essay that he had to deliver to the governing council of Konoha in regards how Konoha could be improved. He had been given a time frame of 3 weeks to write it, and he hoped that it was good enough. The race to become the Hokage of Konoha was not lost on Naruto, and he had admitted privately to himself that the position was something that was too good of an opportunity to pass up on. He was confident that he had the writing edge over Kimimaro when it came to the essay, but he had no idea what sort of skill that Sasuke Uchiha had. From his dealings with the boy, Naruto was pretty confident that Sasuke didn't have as much of an interest in the title of Hokage as what either he or Kimimaro did. As far as he was concerned, it was a nice bonus. It wasn't necessary, however. Naruto hoped that all of this meant that he would be in the driver's seat when it came to the judging of the essays. He had written 5,000 words already on it, and hoped it would be decent enough. Might as well go and get some chocolate milk. I deserve a lot after all this. Ever since his bank account had increased, so had his addiction to chocolate milk. So what are we doing today, sensei? Naruto questioned, eager to improve himself as a shinobi. Sure, he was mid to high chunin in skill already despite having only been a chunin for 4 months, but he wasn't satisfied. He wanted to be at the top of the food chain. Well, I thought I might start showing you advanced katan manipulation. Had Naruto spent more time around Jiraiya, he would have known to fear the smirk on the man's face. He didn't, and thus, he was in blissful ignorance. Sweet! So what do I have to do for that? Well, all you have to do is follow me. The Toad Sannin stated as he walked off, Naruto following him. I'm gonna kill that fucking pervert when it get out of this place. Naruto raged internally as he struggled to overcome his predicament. Naruto was standing in a freezer in only his undies. Apparently, this was some form of fucked up training method that the Sannin had gone through when he was younger. Naruto liked to think that it was bullshit. There was no way someone willingly subjected themselves to this. His goal was to cook a piece of meat, any of the ones on offer, to a high quality. It had to be medium rare. The butcher of the place that he was in would be the taste tester, and until it reached his standards, Naruto was allowed to say that he had completed his training. The grins on the face of Jiraiya and the butcher in question made Naruto want to go on a murder spree. The idea of cooking food with fire manipulation was nothing new to Naruto, but circumstances that he was doing it in was. Since he was in very little clothing, he had to devote so much focus to warming himself up with his elemental chakra, instead of doing what he had been tasked to do. He was not even doing that well, as all of his toes were now blue and his fingers were going that way. I've only got to last 10 more minutes of this hell. Come on, Naruto. Focus! The boy chanted to himself as he tried to not die of hypothermia. I wonder if I create an external skeleton around me, would it protect me from the fucking cold? Naruto wondered, and in the end he decided, it couldn't be any worse than what he was feeling now, so he might as well try it. Molding his chakra, Naruto allowed many bones to come out of his skin. When he had his normal bone armor up, Naruto decided to up it once more. He tried to connect all of the bones to one another to create essentially a second skin of bone. The control required to do this was immense, and multitasking too was really eating up his focus. How do people do this sort of stuff? Naruto wondered in shock, as what he was doing was definitely not easy. He was past the point where he couldn't feel his hands as they were blew up until his wrists and ankles. 5 minutes later, and the door opened. Naruto was fading and was not in a state where he noticed who it was. I guess that someone is here to save me. With that last thought, Naruto dropped to the ground, out cold. Jiraiya rushed into the room and picked the boy up off the cold, concrete floor, fire chakra already flooding his hands to warm Naruto up. He knew that he could heat up Naruto quickly and return him to normal, and along with the small camera in the freezer, there was no real trouble. Not that Naruto knew that, of course. The problem came when Jiraiya started channeling Katan chakra into Naruto, and to warm him up, but there was no response. His skin was staying as pale as ever with tinges of blue. Shit! It must be that bone armor thing he has on. The quick-thinking Jiraiya said out loud before forming a Rasengan in his hand and slamming it into the bone in Naruto's arm. The bone resisted it, and Jiraiya gritted his teeth, changing the normal Rasengan into an Otama Rasengan. 5 seconds later and part of the bone chipped off, freeing half of Naruto's forearm. Jiraiya immediately cancelled the Rasengan, and instantly channeled Katan chakra to heat the boy up. Color returned in almost an instant. Blood flushed through the body of Naruto, allowing his limbs to get feeling and slowly go from blue to their normal color. Jiraiya noticed that there was twitching beneath his hand. Looking up, he noticed that Naruto was slowly starting to wake up. "WW, what happened?" Naruto questioned as he slowly regained consciousness. "Don't move," Jiraiya ordered in a serious tone of voice for once. Naruto's response was to start shivering. Now that he was awake, he registered just how cold his body was. His hands and feet hurt so much, and he couldn't even feel his toes. "Get rid of that bone armor." When he heard this command, Naruto didn't hesitate and started molding chakra. He found it harder than normal since he was shivering. It ruined his concentration. Slowly but surely, the bone armor regressed from covering his entire body to normal to nothing. The second that his hands and feet weren't covered, Jiraiya moved his hands so that the fire chakra would warm up the more in need parts of Naruto's body. It was at this point that Naruto realized what it was that had happened and how he got into the mess. "Why the fuck did you put me in that freezer with no clothes and locking the door? Are you crazy?" Jiraiya rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on, there was no real danger. I could instantly heat you up like just now. Think of it as character building. I think I should keep secret the fact that when I did this, I started in a jumper and pants. Character building my ass. After all of this is done, you owe me a pool filled with chocolate milk, you stupid pervert." Naruto grumbled to himself, slowly regaining feeling in his fingers and toes, only for it to be the fact that he could feel that they were frozen. "You wish, you little shit. After the amount of money I dropped on you a few months ago, you aren't getting any presents anytime soon," Jiraiya said, but a grin was on his face before it got thoughtful look on it. "You know, that bone armor that you had that covered your body was hard to break down. It even held up against a Rasengan." Now this had Naruto's attention. "Really, I knew it was strong, but I didn't know it was that strong. Yeah, I mean, you might want to think of working that full-body skeleton into a jutsu of some kind. With you being a taijutsu monster, this could make you even stronger." Naruto was thoughtful for a moment. "Also, when I had that armor up, it insulated me from the cold better than what my skin did. I wonder how it would go about protecting me from heat and then by proxy, fire-based attacks?" Naruto questioned to his sensei. "It's worth a shot, I guess. I mean, if it can block me from all basic elemental attacks and even the Rasengan, then that is definitely something that I should practice on." "Alright, Gaki, well, I guess that you have a few things to work on. How about we go out for lunch, my treat?" Sure, Naruto said with enthusiasm. There was a smile on his face, but his mind wasn't with it. He was already too busy thinking about the possibilities of this new discovery, and how he could turn it into a jutsu. Right, so I will be leading this mission. Does anyone have any questions on this? Naruto questioned, although he hoped that it was a rhetorical question. He didn't want to have anyone question his authority. Yeah, I still don't see why you're in charge. I mean, I proctored the most recent exam and you were in that, Anko said with a frown. She didn't like the idea of being bossed around by someone who was younger than herself, especially when said person was also a lower rank. Ma, play nice, Anko-san. Naruto-kun here is in charge, as it will be a good learning opportunity. Technically I am in charge, but I am only going to override Naruto if he requests that I do, Kakashi said, hoping that it placated the snake charmer. A few of the other Jonin and Chunin on this mission voiced their disapproval at being led by someone who was still only 14 years old. Naruto steeled himself. He knew to expect this. Danzo-sensei had told him to expect this, but he didn't like hearing it. No, I suppose she is right to voice her concerns. She is a ninja and she is risking her life for the completion of the mission, Naruto replied, which made a smirk appear on the face of Anko. I will just have to let the mission speak for itself, Naruto replied, which made a few people's respect for him increase. That and the fact that I have 100% mission record despite having been on multiple S-ranked missions is more than a lot of people can say, Naruto finished, letting it hang in the air. Kakashi internally face-palmed. He could see that what Naruto was doing was having an effect on his coworkers for this mission. He could have easily done without that final line. That essentially brought him back to square one with their respect. I suppose you didn't do too bad, brat, Anko said in passing as Naruto headed off in a different direction to her. My ass, I didn't do too bad. I did good and you know it, you were just not willing to say it, Naruto grumbled to himself as he walked to the Hokage's tower. He had a mission report to fill out, and he also had to be debriefed. Naruto, I see that you have come back from your mission. I trust that it was a success? Danzo questioned when he saw his most recent student. He judged that everything went off without a hitch as Naruto didn't have a scratch on him. Yes, everything went fine, Danzo-sama. I did not need Kakashi to take over, but I did ask him for guidance on a few occasions, Naruto replied. It was the first time he had been on a mission of this scope whilst being the team leader. It was a high-ranked mission towards the land of grass border. He knew that Danzo-sensei and the rest were counting on him to lead the mission successfully. He panicked once. After that minor blimp, Naruto successfully completed the rest of the mission without any trouble. That is good to hear. Far too many ninjas become overconfident and believe that they have the answer to everything. A good ninja is a powerful ninja, but a great ninja is someone who realizes the strengths and weaknesses of his squad and delegates the parameters so that everyone is playing to their strengths. Naruto definitely agreed. Whilst he did not consider himself a genius like Itachi and the others before him, there were some areas that he felt that he was quite good in. The first one was being able to plan. He was able to plan well so that there was a much smaller chance of anything surprising popping up. The second was that he was good at making sure those plans came to fruition. He was good at multitasking and managing his time effectively. He knew when to go to others for help to complete the task as effectively as possible. To be honest, he thought of himself as the best possible candidate for the position of Hokage when the other two choices were Konohamaru and Sasuke. Konohamaru was too childish for the position despite having the potential to be on the level you needed to be. Sasuke, on the other hand, was too self-centered. Whilst it was fine for a normal shinobi, the role of the Hokage was a different beast altogether. Whilst he knew that he was not perfect and there would be quite a few testing times ahead, Naruto was confident that he would do the best job out of the three. Would you like to help me with these reports? Danzo questioned, breaking Naruto out of his musings. Not particularly, but I think that you already know that. This must be some kind of test. No one would willingly do this in their own free time. I guess I might as well bite the kunai. Sure, I didn't have any plans anyway, Naruto tried to say with a convincing facial expression. He didn't. Danzo gave off the smallest of smirks. He is better than Konohamaru and Sasuke. Both of those Chunin decided that they had more important things to do. I was right in using the Sharingan on the daimyo to agree to the proposal for the new Hokage. He could already tell that after the past 4 months as the interim Hokage, Danzo knew the role had to be in the hands of someone much younger. It was draining. It wasn't physically draining, it was mentally draining. Sure, he could handle it, but looking back on it now that he was actually in the position, the idea of the Hokage had been built up over time, and Danzo realized that he didn't like it as much as he thought he would. He had built up the image of the Hokage in his mind after decades of pining for it only to have it now, and it didn't live up to his expectations, not by a long shot. He had to wonder just how Hiruzen put up with it for so long. Danzo had now come to the conclusion that he much preferred to not be underneath the spotlight. He was not that type of person, he privately admitted to himself. It was more for people like his most recent student Naruto. He has come along nicely, but he still has a long way to go if Konoha is going to reclaim its position as the strongest village. The shinobi training was the easy part, now he has to become a politician. That armor of yours is pretty good, but there are a few flaws with it, Jiraiya commented, which Naruto agreed with. Yeah, I can hardly move my joints at all, the blonde Chunin said with annoyance. He had just figured out a new potential trump card jutsu, and now he had realized that he couldn't fight with it. Surely you can just stop creating the bones around your joints to give you most of your flexibility back, right? It would be better to have that defense, and have parts of it missing than to not have it at all, Jiraiya mused. Naruto nodded. Yeah, but that doesn't help the fact that I am not as fast as what I am without it. You even said so yourself. Without the armor, I am a low jonin in speed, with the only person my age close to me is Lee. He probably would be better if he never got injured by Gaara. Jiraiya could see where Naruto was coming from. His speed was one of his best assets when combined with his bloodline. The armor that Naruto had created, though, Jiraiya saw a lot of potential in it, and didn't want Naruto to not realize it. True, but you have to think, you've only just turned 15. You are much quicker than what I was at your age. Your speed will naturally develop as you get older and put more time into training your body. That armor of yours, though, that can help you become a true powerhouse. The type of ninja that can become a Kage. Naruto was shocked. Really, you think it is that good? Naruto questioned. He knew the jutsu was good, but he didn't think it was that good. You're not looking at the bigger picture, Naruto. Think, if you can combine smaller bits of bone with your element, just imagine what you could do when you combine your element with the armor? Jiraiya questioned as he saw Naruto's eyes widen. We have worked out that it can take the brunt of any B-ranked attack and below, so by theory, you could cover yourself in a B-ranked fire ninjutsu, and because of the armor, you wouldn't feel a thing. Outside of something like Guy using the gates or the Yandame Reikage using his lightning armor, it would render all taijutsu and kenjutsu-based attacks useless in theory. This was something that Naruto hadn't thought of, but it only made him grin. The teenager inside of him was grinning at the thought. The potential new jutsu he could make sounded insanely awesome. He was incredibly glad his element was fire, cause it was the coolest of the lot. With lunch having just finished, Naruto got back up from his seat and created the bone armor covering his entire body. Over the past 2 weeks with Jiraiya, Naruto had gotten it down to only 5 seconds from the 5 minutes it previously took to apply the armor. That still wasn't good enough in the eyes of the Toad Sannin. Doing what his sensei had said, Naruto created the majority of the armor but left the joints free from bone marrow. The boy tested out his range of motion and quickly realized that he had about 75% the amount of flexibility that he had without the suit. With a curious expression on his face, Naruto channeled enough fire chakra to cover his entire hand in a small flame. It wasn't as hot as the one that he used to in combination with his bloodline during the fight with Gaara, but it didn't need to be. There was no need for Naruto to focus that much fire to one point during training. His goal was to build strength, not test it. Flames covered his hand from his wrist down, but the blonde wasn't satisfied with that. Ever since Jiraiya had implanted the idea of having what was essentially a suit of fire covering whilst inside his bone armor, he wanted to find out if it would work out in the field. More importantly, he wanted to find out how cool it looked. Unaware of how their former teammate was training, Choji and Ino both attended the summons of the Fire Lord. They didn't know what their next mission was going to be, but they were ready. "My lord, how can we be of service?" Ino questioned as she bowed down to one of the most powerful men in the country. She had just gotten comfortable with the man who was her boss and being able to speak to him on a first-name basis. When a mission came up, however, she spoke professionally. "Ino-chan, how many times have I told you not to call me that?" The man pouted in mock sadness. The blonde bombshell backtracked and stammered in her response. "I'm sorry, Akira-sama. It's just ingrained in us at a young age to call someone of your position by your title," Choji replied, covering for his sister from another mister. "I know that, Choji, but the reason why I offered the position to you two along with young Naruto-kun is because you three aren't simple yes men as you proved during my stay during the Chunin exams." The mention of Naruto brought a slight change in the facial expressions of the two ninja. Their teammate was a sore subject for them. Either unconcerned or unaware, Akira continued on. "I am surrounded by many people looking to make a quick reel or who live in fear of my power that they advise me on making bad decisions. Whilst I myself don't know much about what makes a shinobi good, the people that watched your performances during the Chunin exams vouched for you. I hired you not for your abilities but for your personalities and potential." This was not something that Ino hadn't already theorized. Compared to the other guardian ninjas here, both she and Choji were a fair bit behind the standard. They had improved a lot over the past 5 months and were only slightly behind the other members. "You have improved immensely over the past 5 months, and I have personally seen the amount of effort that you two have put in. Something which I am sure that Naruto Uzumaki will be very happy to see." The respective clan heirs' heads shot up when they heard this. "What do you mean?" Ino questioned with a hint of a grin on her face. She didn't want to celebrate too soon, but it seemed as if she would get to see her former teammate shortly. "I will be going to Konoha in a fortnight for about a week, and you will be 2 of the guards accompanying me. You will be given time off to see your families and friends." The blonde-haired girl grinned like a madman. Not only did she get to see Naruto, who she wanted to patch things up with, but she also got to see the family that she had been missing for quite a while. The feelings of homesickness had already started hitting the woman hard. "I wonder how much Naruto-kun has changed. I mean, he was kind of cute back then, and he at least validated my appearance. I bet he has put on a bit of muscle." Ino internally giggled. One of the things that had happened when she was over in the capital was that she no longer was infatuated with Sasuke Uchiha. Sure, he was physically attractive, but his personality was his best form of contraception as far as she was concerned. She wasn't like Sakura in that she would base her life around boys. Boys were stupid. During the time that she had spent at the capital, she had seen so many women whose life dream was to look pretty and get pregnant to some rich man. She was disgusted by it. It was demeaning to hard-working women and was a terrible thing to teach young women. Part of the reason was because she saw herself going down that path when she in the academy, what with her fascination on Sasuke and all that. She wanted her life to have more meaning than being the trophy wench of some man. The platinum blonde wanted so much more than that. With her mind no longer being fixated on Sasuke, it meant that there were far more options out there, but none sparked her interest quite like Naruto did. He was smart, determined, kind, had a vision, and he was easy on the eyes. The 2 main things that Ino liked about him, though, was that he wasn't the type of person who would let her walk all over him. She immediately lost respect for people who didn't respect themselves. If she screwed up, he would no doubt be the first to tell her that she had fucked up. He was also mature. Well, compared to all of the other boys around her age. It was only a year difference, but for teenagers, it was everything. She couldn't wait to be back home. Tears were falling. She was grateful that she was in the privacy of her own bedroom. This was something that no one was allowed to see. No one, especially not those she cared about, such as her parents and Sasuke. Definitely not Sasuke-kun, as he was the one who had caused the tears to appear in the first place. Sakura was actually surprised she managed to hold on for as long as she did without showing the world how absolutely crushed she was when her Sasuke-kun called her pathetic and useless. The second that the team meeting was over, for the first time, Sakura didn't ask the Uchiha clan heir for a date. The young girl instead sprinted home, faster than she ever had at training, and dropped to her bed and started crying her eyes out. She knew that both Sasuke-kun and Kimimaro were better than her. It was obvious by the fact that both of them received promotions to the rank of Chunin whilst she did not. She wasn't burned by it all that much. Both Sasuke and Kimimaro came from two of Konoha's best clans, and they were boys. It was the amount that they were ahead that bothered the Genin. With the invasion having just happened, Konoha needed all of its manpower. They couldn't keep Team 7 together, which was what she wanted. She loved being a part of Team 7. When they did meet up, though, it wasn't the same as Sakura remembered it. She quickly found out that she was the limiting factor on the team. It didn't matter how good the teamwork that Kakashi had drilled into them was. Her individual ninja abilities were so far below Konohamaru and Sasuke's that the team was forced to only do C-rank missions. With the two boys having tested themselves on A-ranked missions in the past, they saw C-rank missions as a step down, and weren't all that happy about it. They never voiced their frustrations directly on her, but it had been indirectly said once or twice. It made her feel like crap, and she didn't want to hear it, but there was a nagging thought in the back of her mind that they were right. She was weak. She was woefully weak. Even Ino is much stronger than me now. She even got promoted to Chunin and is now one of the daimyo's guard. Whilst there was the thought that she had gotten the position because she was a clan heir and her sensei was one of the former guards, Sakura assumed that her rival in love had to be good to get the chance. All of the people that she had thought she was equal to during the academy now seemed like they were a million miles in front of her. She was lagging behind badly. She was the injured hind leg that the dog had to drag along the ground. Sasuke said I was weak, pathetic, and useless. That I had never contributed anything to any mission ever. If he realizes just how much Ino has improved and is a good ninja, then I will have no chance in winning his heart. I have to do something about this. I have to become a stronger ninja, for Sasuke's sake. Piggy won't stand a chance when I am done training. Chapter 19 Make a Change. Sitting in what was formerly land of the Senju compound was a blonde-haired teenager. Naruto Uzumaki couldn't help but marvel at everything around him. When Jiraiya mentioned that he bought 10 acres off of pristine land off of the Senju clan, he did not expect to find a temple on the land. Despite the ruined state it was in, all of the masks inside that Naruto had come to learn about were still perfectly intact. As far as Naruto was concerned, that was all that mattered, as buildings could easily be replaced but the heirlooms of the nearly extinct clan could not. Naruto looked down at the wall that formerly housed the masks of the Uzumaki clan temple. Today was the last day in which this temple would still stand. As much as loved learning about the history of the Uzumaki temple, Naruto could tell that it was in dire need of repairs. The Chunin got a civilian engineer to come out and have a look at the structural integrity of the building, and unfortunately for his bank account, it was the worst possible outcome. The temple was barely staying up, and one giant storm could spell the end for it. There were already pillars of wood which were cracked, water leaks in the ceiling, and a termite infestation. As much as Naruto would have loved to keep the original building as a reminder of the history his clan, he couldn't. He instead had two options. Option 1 was knock down the temple and build it again to look exactly like the original. Option 2 would also entail knocking down the temple, but it differed by using a new design. In the end, Naruto decided that he would like to build the new temple with a newer design. Getting up, Naruto did one final tour of the derelict temple and made sure that there was nothing left remaining that was worth keeping. All of the scrolls on Fuinjutsu which Naruto made a point to remember to read upon were removed, and now it was time. Katan, Gokameshitsu, Fire Style, Great Fire Destruction, Naruto chanted out as he did all 7 hand seals. Naruto's knowledge and execution of the technique was still in its infancy. It was after all one of Madara Uchiha's signature fire jutsus after all. He was very grateful to his friend Sasuke for letting him look into the fire release techniques of the Uchiha clan. With them having set the standard on what a competent Keton user should look like, Naruto couldn't think of a better place to learn about his element. The blue-eyed boy knew that it wasn't combat-ready due to the amount of time it took to prepare the attack. Any competent ninja who was verging on Jonin or above would easily be able to take advantage of the time it took for Naruto to set it up. Give me some time though. Naruto smirked. Naruto watched as the temple was burnt down to the ground. It wasn't too long before the two colleagues that Naruto had just done a mission with, who happened to be decent Suiton users, quickly went through hand seals of their own. The nearby stream running on the right-hand side of the temple had water fly up into the air and douse the flames. "Thanks, guys! This means a lot," Naruto said before the two ninjas headed off home. Naruto knew he could do the rest in clearing the site with his rudimentary Doton knowledge. Tomorrow was the day in which the plans he had received from the architect were set in motion. Thankfully for Naruto, he actually had the funds to do it. The money he had saved from the sponsorship deal, the money he had persuaded Gato to part way with, and also the money he was getting back from his investment into Wave Country was getting put to good use. As much as Naruto's would have liked to not have help from anyone else, that was not the case. The restoration of the temple was dependent on the help of Jiraiya financing the deal. Despite Naruto having saved up an impressive $50,000 by leaving extremely frugally, it was still nowhere near enough to finance the $500,000 cost for the temple. In came the owner of the Ika franchise with an interest-free loan. The blonde didn't enjoy handouts, and despite his godfather offering to pay for everything, Naruto wouldn't accept it. The best he managed to haggle Jiraiya down to was only having to pay half of the loan, and that was interest-free with no time limit. For Naruto, this was a huge amount of money. For Toad Sanin, it was merely a drop in the ocean. He was a self-made multimillionaire. With Naruto being his godson, he finally had someone to spend the money on that he felt was worth spending the money on. When he shelled out $10 million to buy a third of the Senju compound for Naruto, he saw it as a present for Naruto. The fact that he also wiped out all of Tsunade's debt didn't mean anything to Jiraiya. After all, she was the one who put herself in that position by gambling in the first place. In addition to Naruto getting a loan from his godfather, he also got to move into his godfather's apartment in the inner city, an area which had a much higher cost of living, free of charge. All he had to do was make sure the place was clean for the few times which Jiraiya came back to Konoha. "It's good to be back home, isn't Ino-chan?" Choji questioned to his sister in all but blood. As they were representing the Fire Lord today, they were dressed in their best clothes. Choji was wearing the battle armor of his clan. Ino was wearing a dark purple kimono with her clan's symbol on the back. This wasn't uncommon for people who worked with her on a daily basis. What was different though was that her wasn't in a variation of a ponytail. Instead, it was let down and curled immaculately. She had definitely put effort into her appearance this morning. "Definitely, Choji-kun. I can't wait to see all of our family and friends. I hope Naruto isn't on any mission out of the village at the moment," the blonde beauty replied. Her teammate noticed that Naruto was mentioned separately there. I wonder if there is something there, or it is just her flirty personality." The duo followed down the path towards Konoha. They could make out the gate guards, and the emotions intensified. They were finally home for the first time in 6 months. Waiting for the daimyo and by proxy Ino and Choji was interim leader of Konoha, and the two advisors they had been briefed by. It was wishful thinking, Ino thought to herself. She couldn't wait until she saw Naruto again. She knew she looked damn good, and the blonde-haired girl couldn't wait to see the blushing mess that he would be rendered to when he saw her for the first time. "Welcome to Konoha. I hope your trip was a pleasant one, Daimyo-sama?" Danzo questioned as he gave a short bow. Hamura and Koharu did the same thing. "Indeed it was, Danzo-san. I am eager to see the outcome of my visit to Konoha," Akira mentioned with a small grin on his face. "It was not every day that you got to see a new Hokage being crowned." Danzo nodded. "Yes, I doubt many trips would hold quite as much significance as what this one does. If you would oblige, I will take you to the Hokage Tower where we can discuss how tomorrow will be run." The fire daimyo agreed and then followed the veteran war hawk to the tower. Both Ino and Choji couldn't help but wonder what it was that their boss was here for. They hadn't been briefed at all, so it was their best guess as to what it could be. The only thing I can think of is, given our situation, we may possibly be here for a new Hokage to be crowned. I wonder who it could be. Maybe a Suma-sensei? Ino thought to herself. Ino-san, Choji-san, you are relieved from your duties for the time being. I will send a request for you when you need to return, Akira said, knowing that the two teenagers desperately wanted to see their respective families for the first time in 6 months. Both Ino and Choji couldn't help but grin and immediately used the body flicker jutsu to head off home. So Danzo-san, how has the interim position of Hokage been treating you? Akira said once they arrived into the Hokage's office. Silencing seals activated. It has been well, Daimyo-sama, however I don't Hiruzen who had to do it for multiple decades. Danzo definitely wasn't going to mention the fact that he didn't have the Jonin support as they knew of his past. Because of this, he had a difficult time being interim Hokage no less. I can imagine it would get tiring. I wonder how whoever out of the 3 boys gets the position will handle it. Akira probed, curious as to how the Chunin were going. Regardless, if they want the position, they will have to handle it. I suspect it will be harder for Kimimaro to handle though, as he is very hyperactive compared to the others. So I believe we shall get started then? I have 3 essays written. Which one would you like to read first? Danzo questioned, holding out the papers in front of the man in front of him. Having heard a fair bit about Choji and Ino's teammate Naruto as well as meeting the boy himself, Akira decided to save that for later. He was curious as to the other competitors for the position of Hokage were like. What the position of Hokage entails and means to me. Sasuke Uchiha. As the daimyo read the paper in front of him, he was impressed with the quality. The punctuation and grammar was flawless. It was obvious that this candidate had a privileged upbringing. A few good points were raised in that since it was a military village, they needed to increase their strength to prevent future events like the Sand Invasion from happening again. He was particularly impressed when Sasuke discussed the need for better internal security, using his own experiences during the Uchiha massacre to highlight how internal threats were more dangerous than external threats. On the other hand, he couldn't help but notice that there was not that much of a focus on protecting the civilians who made up the majority of the population in the village. The same people who provided the economy for the military village to run. Overall, Akira thought it was a good essay at 3,500 words. I get the impression Sasuke is quite driven to make Konoha the strongest village, but he doesn't mention anything about how he is going to do that. I agree with Sasuke in that Konoha is not in the position it was previously, and we need to increase the effectiveness of our military. We will be surrounding whoever the choice may be with trusted and experienced advisors who will be able to guide Sasuke to making the correct decisions. Danzo diplomatically stated. He didn't want to state any personal preference. He wanted to see what Akira's was first before stating his own. I see, can you please hand me the next one? Why I would be the best Hokage just like my grandfather. Konohamaru Sarutobi. Is this all of it? The daimyo questioned with a frown on his face. Just from a glance, Akira estimated that there was only 500 or so words on the 2 pages. It left a lot to be desired. He seriously doubted that such a small word count was going to be enough to adequately cover the scope of the essay required. Like Sasuke, he talks about making Konoha more powerful, but there is no mention as to how he is going to go about this. He does specifically mention the will of fire and how he cares for the village, which is great. However, the amount of spelling mistakes and poor grammar make it hard to read. Yes, there is no questioning the loyalty and the love that Konohamaru has for the village. Seeing that Danzo wasn't going to mention anything more, Akira asked for the final paper, which was Naruto's. What is required from the next Hokage to provide stability and prosperity to the population of Konoha over the next decade? Naruto Uzumaki. I can already tell that this one is going to take longer than Sasuke's paper will take to read. Akira mentioned in an impressed tone of voice. If he had to guess, it was at least double, if not triple the size of Sasuke's report. It is in Konoha's best interest to not require such a heavy reliance on individual brilliance from its shinobi. The major reason why Konoha has been on the top of the food chain since the Warring Clan era is because it has had a higher level of excellence from the 1% of elite shinobi in comparison to other villages. As a village, we rely heavily on individual quality to win crucial battles whilst we preach teamwork? Why is this? This is because Konoha's education curriculum at the academy is flawed. It puts too much emphasis on ninja training to be done by shinobi clans and jonin sensei. This puts children who are either orphaned or come from a civilian background at a severe disadvantage. Whilst there is definitely merit to having a similar education to the civilian sector with ninja training thrown on top, I believe that it is paramount that there is a redevelopment of the curriculum to evenly split time to shinobi training and civilian training. Through my own and several others' anecdotal experience, there is more value to having multiple teachers teaching a subject that they specialize in, rather than having one teacher be who is a jack of all trades. This would mean for the skill sets that aren't related to ninja training, we would have civilian teachers teach the students. The university-level education taught in the civilian school system would be beneficial for academic achievement, as well as bring a new perspective to the shinobi education system. Akira was blown away by the level of thought and detail that went into the passage that he had just read. It was clear to him that Naruto had thought about this significantly, and also provided evidence to back up his opinions. It was one of the first topics that Naruto had talked about in his essay, and he was eager to read more. There is also room for improvement in the organizational structure of Konoha. A lot of the administration and running is not running as efficiently as it could be. We have shinobi in positions that don't utilize their skill set. Why should a shinobi who doesn't have any experience in running a company's financials be placed in the budgeting section of the military? The position is one that has no requirement for the manipulation of chakra, so why are we employing someone in that role which could be better served out in the field? As a village, we provide training to shinobi on how to manage money, so why couldn't we collaborate with the Konoha University and add a few courses to the degree in the areas that would be required for them to work in military as a civilian? This would provide Konoha with the potential to have higher quality employees producing better results than if we limit our selection pool to only those who have access to their chakra who don't specialize in the area in which they are employed. If he was impressed beforehand, Akira was gobsmacked now. Having never seen something like this before, it was a groundbreaking suggestion that Naruto was making. It was no secret that in shinobi villages, there was always a disconnect between shinobi and civilians. Akira was a firm believer in a more collaborative populace would provide a better environment for the village. He agreed with Naruto in the thought some civilians could do some military jobs better than some ninjas. It was something that he would definitely support if Naruto became the Hokage. Akira then went on to read the rest of Naruto's 10,000-word report, which he was thoroughly impressed by. Well, there is definitely someone leading at the moment. So far, it is Naruto's position to lose. Admiring the efforts of labor was Naruto. He was impressed with the amount of work done on the first day. He could already see the foundations being laid and could easily picture the temple. He hoped that his mom was proud of what he was doing to restore the clan. Hearing a noise from behind, Naruto immediately turned around and spotted someone who he hadn't seen in 6 months. She was wearing a dark purple kimono which had white trimming. The blonde hair was even longer than what it used to be, and it was out of its ponytail. Naruto couldn't help but stare at his teammate. He was not the only one doing that, as Ino was also taking in the appearance of her former teammate. Naruto, due to working on the temple all day, was only in a pair of compression shorts that stopped just above the knee. The Yamanaka easily noticed that Naruto had put on a considerable amount of muscle over the past 6 months. Naruto-kun, Ino said, the first to break the ice, having not spoken to one another since the fight. She noticed Naruto's eyes give their judgment on her body, and it sent shivers down her spine. Ino-chan, you look stunning, he whispered as he slowly walked towards her. She quickly mirrored Naruto, and they found themselves within touching distance. I'm sorry for the way I acted, I just didn't want to lose the closest thing I have ever had to a family. Tears started forming down the face of the proud clan heiress. And I never meant to say you wouldn't understand what it's like to leave family behind, Naruto. You're right. We are family. Naruto couldn't help it. The second he saw tears streaming down Ino's makeup-clad face, he enveloped his best female friend in a big hug. This only further served to let the tears come out at a rapid rate. She quickly wrapped her smaller arms around Naruto and returned the embrace, resting her head in the crook of his neck. Damn these tears! Ino whined as she broke from the hug, wiping her eyes. Naruto was confused for a second until Ino continued speaking. It's ruined all of my makeup. I probably look like one horrendous. Never had Naruto been so quick to reply. No! Ino-chan, you look amazing! I don't care if your makeup is running off of your face or not even on at all. To me, you will always be my Ino-chan. Naruto stared with intensity into the eyes of the blue-eyed girl. My Ino-chan, oh Naruto, that's a dangerous thing to say. That could get a girl to fall for you. The Yamanaka couldn't help but stare into the eyes of Naruto. She saw the fire and the passion in which he stated what he believed to be fact. A smirk appeared on her face. My Ino-chan, ha, Naruto-kun? Are you trying to insinuate something or what? She said with a smirk on her face. Spluttering, Naruto didn't know what to say as he realized the context his words could be taken. Fuck you! Was the best that he could come up with. With all the blood that rushed to his face, it left little in his brain to think of a smart-ass response, something which he was normally known for. Wow, Naruto-kun, propositioning me with that already. And yet you haven't even wined and dined me? That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it pays off. This time laughter accompanied the blonde-haired girl. You witch. Yeah, but I'm your witch, aren't I, Naruto-kun? A flirty smile graced the face of Ino as she stared into the eyes of her former teammate. That completely went away and was replaced by butterflies in her stomach and her heart beating 1,000 times a second when Naruto stared into her eyes. The fact that he was still holding onto her body in a tight embrace only further served to emphasize this. I've missed you, Ino-chan, Naruto said with a small smile as he gazed into the blonde's eyes. The raw emotion was on show for all to see. I miss you too. Fuck me. I'm acting like Hinata. No one makes the sultry Ino like this. I cat got your tongue? Is that a blush I see? The Uzumaki questioned, which only further served to make the blush even more pronounced. Screw you, Naruto-kun. Oh, you wish, Ino-chan, and don't think I haven't noticed your hands moving over my back. Well, can you blame me? You are almost freaking naked. And muscly, so very muscly. Thinking quickly, Ino put her foot behind Naruto's and pushed, causing the blonde-haired Chunin to fall on his back. Not resting, Ino pounced and pinned Naruto beneath her. Every emotion she saw in his eyes made her feel like the luckiest girl in the world. Naruto, wanting to get revenge, tipped the scales and flipped the two of them so that he was on top. He had also grabbed her hands and pinned them above her head. If Ino's heart rate wasn't high enough previously, it was definitely racing now. The distance between their faces was slowly closing. Without thinking, in a brief moment, Naruto pressed his lips onto Ino's in a chaste kiss. The ramifications of how this could potentially damage their friendship beyond repair was not even considered. When the kiss was broken, Ino looked into her former teammate's eyes. She noticed fear, attraction, but not a desire to say that he was sorry for his actions. Liking the feeling of having Naruto's lips pressed on hers, she returned the favor. It was the start of the elongated makeout session before Naruto turned over and lay down on the ground next to Ino. He quickly pulled her to rest atop of his chest, not that she minded it one bit. So how was your time in the capital? Naruto questioned, eager to hear about what she had been up to. It's been great, Ino said animatedly. Both Choji and myself have improved a lot as shinobi. I bet we could give you a run for your money one-on-one. A small smirk appeared on her face as she finished her statement. What, you think I have just been sitting still doing nothing? I've also been improving as a shinobi. You don't get muscles like this without training hard. At this point Naruto flexed his chest muscles which Ino was lying on. Oh yeah, what about these muscles? Ino said as he propped herself up and flexed her biceps. She's really changed from the girl who hated the thought of being bulky. It's obvious she cares about her appearance but doesn't let that come in the way of her shinobi career. Can't see any since they are covered up by your kimono. Well, how about this then? Ino said as she rolled up the sleeves to the shoulders. Naruto could clearly see definition and mass in her arms and was impressed. It's chilly! Ino called out, to which Naruto grinned. Well, come back down here, he said whilst patting his chest. When Ino arrived on his chest, he immediately started channeling Katan chakra into his body, heating it up. What can I say? I am a natural furnace. You definitely are my furnace, the Yamanaka girl said with a smile on her face as she snuggled into Naruto. As far as the Uzumaki was concerned, this was one of the best feelings he had ever experienced, and he didn't want it to end. As much as he didn't want the night to end, he knew that it had to. Today was a very significant day. He knew that he would need a minimum of 8 hours sleep to be at his fighting best. Every preparation was made for the 15-year-old. A new Hokage would be crowned today, and over the past half a year, Naruto had come to the decision that he wanted the title. He wanted to protect Konoha. He wanted to make sure that the village he called home prospered. He wanted the prestige that came with the title. He wanted the money that came with the role. Most importantly, though, out of the 3 Chunin vying for the title, Naruto believed that he was the best person for the role. He honestly didn't feel as if he could respect Konohamaru despite the friendship they had formed over the past few months. Sasuke, he could respect a little bit more, but he wondered whether or not the Uchiha would put the village first or his own ambitions in killing Itachi. If he took the position, he doubted that Sasuke would be allowed to go out in search of the missing ninja. He couldn't wait for today to be over, regardless of the decision. He had spent the past 6 months of his life dedicating himself to this goal, and he wanted this to be over. Naruto wanted to progress onto bigger and better things. Sitting in the council chambers were both the civilian council and the representatives that made up the shinobi council. They had all of the evidence in front of them, and it was time to go through it and collate. At the end of this meeting, a new Hokage would be decided. All 3 candidates had put forth their case to become the next Hokage of Konoha. They had completed the written exam on Konoha, completed multiple missions leading up to today, performed in a mock fight in front of the Shinobi Council, and also had a politics exam with the daimyo, bartering on prices of missions. So, let's get this started, shall we? The daimyo mentioned with the attention of everyone in the room, solely on him. I will let Shikaka-san, as the Jonin commander, proceed with the military evaluation. Thank you, daimyo-sama. I will begin by saying that all 3 of the Chunin have progressed immensely over the past 6 months. If the rank of Jonin was based solely on ninja ability, I would recommend all of them to attend the Jonin exam. Now, Konohamaru Sarutobi is an exemplary ninja in pure combat ability. His ability to use all fire elements proficiently is nothing short of amazing for someone his age. Being able to put Kakashi on the back foot in a ninjutsu battle is definitely impressive. He has the chakra reserves to power jutsu after jutsu. The only person who I have seen perform this better for all elements is his grandfather Sandaime-sama. His bojutsu with the staff is fairly proficient, but it is definitely at a lower level compared to the ninjutsu standard he set. As can be expected with a Jinchuriki, his ability in genjutsu is next to non-existent, but he has the ability to detect and dispel with little trouble. I agree with that assessment of Konohamaru, but feel the need to mention that his taijutsu skill is quite lacking. It is a weak point that would easily be found out. Hayashi commented, which some also nodded towards. Also, he never showed any usage of the Kyuubi's chakra. Whilst that is a good sign for his abilities, it raises question marks as to how much he is able to control it. Inoichi added to the conversation. Shikaka nodded. True. We do have to take into consideration that Konohamaru is still a Chunin, and whilst his ninjutsu abilities are on the level of an elite Jonin, there will be areas where he is not as skilled in. Also, with this potential appointment being a temporary one for 1 year, there is time for Konohamaru to focus on other areas of shinobi combat. Sasuke has exemplary kenjutsu skills, His ninjutsu is also to a high standard in being able to use two elements proficiently. I was particularly impressed with his variations of the Chidori. Managing to hold his own in a kenjutsu spar with Yugao whilst getting hit by genjutsu from Kurenai is impressive. Sasuke is the all-round better shinobi. His weak points aren't as noticeable as Konohamaru's, although his strengths aren't as strong either. Chusa mentioned. Naruto has elite Jonin level taijutsu. Naruto was able to stand on the same level as Guy without weights but no gates opened. His ninjutsu is also impressive. Whilst his ability in the Doton element is lacking compared to Sasuke's ability with his secondary affinity, his control over the fire element is extraordinary. He also has Chunin level knowledge of Fuinjutsu, something which is quite hard to master. Having heard of all of the reports from Shikaku, the daimyo then took control of the meeting once more. So, if there was another invasion to happen tomorrow, which shinobi would you have the most confidence in their abilities? Hayashi was the first to speak up. Naruto. A few members of the Shinobi Council chuckled. It was no secret that with Hayashi being the head of the Hyuga clan, he had preferences to taijutsu users over ninjutsu. The combination of his bloodline and his ninjutsu is significant. The speed in which he fights at is something that is very hard to combat. There's no point having access to every ninjutsu ever created if you can't hit your opponent with it. Also, with the Ichibi gathering chakra over the stadium, his knowledge in Fuinjutsu. Konohamaru. His ability with ninjutsu is simply too hard to ignore. Being able to use all 5 elements is something remarkable for anyone, let alone someone his age. The Fuinjutsu knowledge isn't a requirement, however, as we can just get Jiraiya to handle that. Some stated. Sasuke. Whilst Naruto is proficient in Fuinjutsu, which is not that common, I believe that Sasuke is the most well-rounded candidate on offer due to having high skills in close, medium, and long range. Also, the Sharingan has the potential to control Bijou, which would be helpful with the Ichibi. They all have combat abilities required to be a Jonin, and due to their respective ages, there is more than enough time to work on improving their abilities. We may need to keep Jiraiya around for the next year a bit more frequently as a threat to other villages whilst we train the Hokage to be an S-class shinobi. Shikaku stated, essentially stating that the combat skills of all 3 was satisfactory for a Hokage. The daimyo nodded in earnest. Okay, so now we move on to the academic exam. I trust that everyone here has read the essays of the 3 candidates? Without seeing anyone interject, Akira continued speaking. Would anyone like to comment first? The CEO of one of Konoha's banks spoke up. It seems to me that Konohamaru spent all of his time focusing on the fighting aspect of being the Hokage whilst neglecting the academic portion and potentially others. In contrast to this, I was thoroughly impressed with the level of detail and thought that Naruto put into his. I am particularly interested in seeing some of his topics play out if he takes the position. With the amount of agreement on show from the civilian sector, Danzo smirked. It was clear to him that Naruto had won the favor of the civilian side of the council. Whilst they did not have much say in the choice of the Hokage, they had significant power in the approval ratings of the Hokage once they were in office. Most of the shinobi from his vantage point also held Naruto in high regard. To those who had yet to meet the Chunin, first impressions mattered. His essay on how to improve Konoha, regardless of if he was Hokage, showed that he cared about the interests of the village and had put much forethought into it. Yes, I must say that I was very impressed with the amount of effort that Naruto put into his essay. Sasuke's, on the other hand, was good, and Konohamaru's, well, the less said the better. I'm not too sure he fully realizes the amount of paperwork he will have to deal with if he gets the position. I believe he would be much better suited out in the field. Inoichi commented, to which several clan heads nodded in agreement. Akira took a bit of time before speaking. I see. Danzo-san, do you agree? Jiraiya had his attention solely on the Warhawk and was eager to heed what he had to say. Noticing that everyone had his eyes, he paused for a second to make sure he articulated himself the exact way he wanted to. He is definitely a talented shinobi and has the ability to perform great feats whilst on missions. His attention to detail is an area which has room for improvement, and whilst we can teach him some of the soft skills required to be a diplomat, there is a certain innate skill set that you either have or don't, which I don't believe that Kimimaro has. I can't say that I disagree with that, Jiraiya thought to himself. Jiraiya, could you please offer a few words about the leadership abilities of each candidate? Akira asked, to which the Toad Sannin nodded. Sasuke is a Chunin in a few words, but every word said has its merits. He isn't the type of person to give a rousing speech to boost morale. He does, however, boost morale simply by having the utmost confidence in his abilities as a ninja and being able to back that up. This is sometimes to his detriment, but overall he is a respectable leader. Kimimaro has the innate natural charisma that very few people have. He is able to encourage those around him and get them to perform at levels above what they normally can. Strategy, however, is not his strong point and could use a few lessons from Shikaku when planning in advance, but on the fly decision-making, he is second to none. Overall, he is a good leader. Naruto is not afraid to differ to those around him who possess a higher skill set compared to his own if it means completing the mission. He currently has a 100% successful completion rate of missions. This is something that he is very proud about. He is able to rally higher performances out of his shinobi and able to give morale-boosting speeches, as seen during his display at the Chunin exams. Jiraiya said. Frankly, he thought that all three, given enough time, would become highly competent leaders. Ah yes! I remember Naruto-san leading his team to protect myself, my granddaughter and our entourage to the safe house of the Sarutobi compound. I was very impressed with his ability that day. He wasn't afraid to talk harshly to myself to ensure the completion of the mission. Danzo couldn't help but smirk as he watched everything play out. If there was one thing that he liked, it was everything going according to plan. It was clear to see that Naruto had the full support of the daimyo. The rest of the discussion as to who would become the next Hokage would take place over 4 hours. After the introduction was handled, they delved further into the specifics of each skill set that was getting graded. Akira propped the paper in front of him on the table as a smile appeared on his face. So after all that, we have agreed that Godame Hokage of Konoha shall be Uzumaki Naruto. Chapter 20, and Breakaway. Naruto Uzumaki, you are hereby summoned to the Hokage's office. The member of the ANBU stated as he answered the door. You have 10 minutes before you are required to be there. The ANBU officer mentioned before vanishing in a body flicker. The Chunin grinned. Today was the day that he was going to find out whether or not all of his hard work over the past 6 months. He was quietly confident in his abilities. Whilst Kimimaro may be slightly better in terms of combat, due to abusing the shadow clone learning technique, Naruto didn't believe that he had any form of diplomatic skills whatsoever. Sasuke, he thought that their combat skills were even, maybe favoring him slightly, and he also thought that he had slightly higher diplomatic skills. He hoped that the people making the decision could also see what he believed. Naruto hopped in the shower, and then proceeded to make himself presentable. He was wearing a faded light red kimono top with black trimming. The Uzumaki clan symbol was proudly displayed on the back of Naruto's kimono. He finished off the look with a pair of black pants and black shinobi sandals. It was one of his better outfits, and he was taking a calculated risk as he didn't want to ruin the clothes were expensive. With everything set, Naruto made his way over to the Hokage Tower. When he arrived in the room, Naruto found himself greeted by several clan heads, Jiraiya, Danzo, and the daimyo. He quickly bowed to the distinguished guests. The blonde-haired ninja happened to notice that both Kimimaro and Sasuke were not in the room. He wasn't too sure if this was because they were late, or something else. The heart rate of Naruto raised with the hope that it was because he was here to accept the position. With a smile on his face, Akira Tokugawa, who was standing beside the Hokage's desk, started the conversation. Naruto Uzumaki, it is with great pleasure that I am able to offer you the position of Godame Hokage of Konoha. Akira said a few things after that, but to be completely honest, it wasn't something that Naruto paid attention to. Ever since hearing that his father was the former Hokage of Konoha, the desire to become the next one drove Naruto along with the promise of riches. To hear that he was getting the offer was something that was surreal, and he struggled to comprehend all of it. It was as if all of his goals in life were coming true. He wanted to become a powerful ninja and all of the attention that comes along with that. He wanted to gain wealth to the point where he could live his life however he wanted. With the promotion to the rank of Hokage, everything that he ever wanted was so close within reach. I accept. That is great, Naruto-san. If you would please overlook this contract and then sign it, we will then proceed with the inauguration process. The daimyo stated, ushering Naruto to the Hokage desk. Naruto didn't waste much time sitting down in the desk which he took in. He stared out the window at the village and suddenly, fear built up inside him. It was only now that he was being tasked with. 1,000,000 people's lives were suddenly under his protection. He had the responsibility to ensure that 1,000,000 people not only survived but also prospered. Turning around, Naruto looked into the eyes of the two people crucial for his development as a shinobi, being Jiraiya and Danzo. The Chunin saw the looks of pride in Jiraiya's eyes and also the confidence in Danzo's. Naruto could tell that they fully believed that he was the best person for the job. He couldn't let them down. He couldn't let Ino and the rest of Team 10 down. He couldn't let Konoha and the memory of his parents down. Renewed vigor coursed through Naruto as he now looked down at the legally binding document. The first things that he noticed was that there was no annual leave or sick leave. You were expected to fulfill the obligations of your position every minute of every day. There were no off days. The $500,000 a year salary made up for it though. The sight of that made Naruto's eyes nearly bug out of his head. It was a significant step up. Sure, he knew that Jiraiya had spent 10 million to buy the new Uzumaki compound off of the Ninjas, but that was his godfather's money, not his. This, however, was entirely his, and it was a reward for all of the hard work that he had put in over the years. That wasn't even the best bit. Naruto read that this was a probation period contract. It was for a year, and if his performances weren't up to the level required, Konoha would be able to remove him from his position and fill it with someone else. Once it became official and he was no longer on a probationary period, his salary would rise by 5% each year. After finishing reading the rest of the contract in explicit detail, Naruto picked up the pen beside the paper. Before he started signing the paper, Jiraiya spoke up. Naruto, before you sign that, let me speak for a second. Seeing that he had his godson's attention, Jiraiya continued. If you would like, you can sign the paper as Naruto Namikaze and change your name over. When Konoha hears about it, it will help win over a few people. Naruto thought about it. Thanks, Jiraiya-sensei. I don't think I will, however, though. I have had the surname Uzumaki throughout my life and it has served me well, and I want to restore the name of prestige of my clan rather than start a new one. The advice on name-dropping who dad is a good idea, and I will use that in my inauguration speech to help win over a few of the harder people. With that said, Naruto signed the contract as Naruto Uzumaki. It was now official, the new Godame Hokage of Konoha was Naruto Uzumaki. Within moments of Naruto being appointed the Hokage of Konoha, he was already getting down to business. The first matter of discussion was the reformation of the Ichibi. It was scheduled to happen in the anywhere 6 months to 18 months, and it appeared as if it was going to take place right above the Colosseum. There wasn't a specific date, but it was believed it would happen 1 year after the date of Gaara's death. Jiraiya-sensei, you will need to be around that day as we will seal it into a shinobi. Currently our military position is significantly weakened due to the invasion, and the alternative of sealing the bijou into a vase or something like that seems like a waste. Gotcha, kiddo. I can do that fairly easily. Now who do you plan on sealing it in? Naruto thought on it for a moment. I believe that it is best that the child comes from a ninja family. That way, they can help provide a stable environment and notice chakra-related issues a lot earlier than a civilian family could. From what I have read, normally the person chosen to be a Jinchuriki is related to the reigning Kage's family to ensure loyalty to the village, but is a problem since I have no remaining family. Naruto pondered, yet to have thought of a solution. If I may suggest, Hokage-sama, my grandson is 2 years away from graduating from the academy. He is a loyal shinobi like myself and preaches how much he desires to protect Konoha. You could seal the bijou into him, and then become his sensei when he graduates the academy to ensure loyalty to the village. Danzo, ever the opportunist, said after spotting an opening. After all, making plays after Naruto got the role was the whole reason why he did this in the first place. Balking at this idea, Jiraiya quickly spoke up. Hang on a second there are plenty of other candidates that are loyal to the village and come from shinobi backgrounds. Also, emotions are a critical part, the ability to gain access and control the chakra of the tailed beast inside them. Jiraiya had to be careful. Naruto still held affection for one of his senseis, and he didn't want to force an ultimatum. He couldn't let Naruto become the puppet of Danzo. Naruto noticed the barb thrown in about emotions but chose to ignore it. What about his age? I have heard that there are issues, the older the recipient of the demon is. How can we get around that? The newly minted Hokage questioned, trying to cover all bases. Internally, Danzo grinned. He was glad that Naruto didn't immediately dismiss the idea. That fact that he was considering it was a foot in the door. Tsunade-san has been away from the village for over a decade, doing who knows what. Hiruzen gave her a free pass to leave the village. She never formally retired as a shinobi, so she is effectively a rogue ninja. If she were to come back to the village, she would greatly help with the creation of a new Jinchuriki. Also, with you becoming the new Hokage, a lot of the world is going to be questioning how strong you are. A fourth shinobi world war will potentially break out. We don't have the luxury of putting the bijou into an infant, as they could be a serious liability. Jiraiya honestly couldn't say anything in defense of his former teammate. He knew that Sarutobi-sensei had been extremely lenient over Tsunade, and now with Naruto in charge, who had no emotional connection to the lady, it was time for her to face the music of her decisions. He also agreed fully with Danzo that making Naruto the Hokage of Konoha would shake up the elemental nations, and he wasn't sure how the world was going to react. I see. Regardless of whatever happens in regards to the decision of the Jinchuriki situation, I am ordering Tsunade to come back to Konoha. Jiraiya-sensei, I am giving you full blessing for you to use whatever means necessary to bring her back to Konoha. If need be, use force. You are the best person for the job. Alright Gaki, this should be interesting, hehe. She ain't going to like that. Naruto merely shrugged his shoulders. I don't care. Bring her to me then and I will have a chat with her. Also, Danzo-sensei, can you please provide a report of current academy students that fit the criteria from all ages and state the pros and cons for becoming a Jinchuriki? It was clear to those in the room that Naruto was taking this with the utmost earnestness. As you command, Hokage-sama. When he heard the news that he was not going to be selected to become the Hokage, Sasuke strangely enough wasn't all that bothered by it. If he was completely honest with himself, he saw the position of Hokage as a pretty bad one. For the goals that he needed to accomplish in life, holding the title of Hokage went against them. All he ever saw of the Sandaime Hokage was him sitting behind his desk and doing paperwork. If he became the Hokage, then it was pretty much certain that he would have to do the same thing. Whilst he was busy with paperwork, Itachi was out there getting stronger. He couldn't be stuck behind a desk all day. Being a candidate for the role of Hokage definitely had some benefits though. If Sasuke was completely honest with himself, if it wasn't for being selected for this 6 months ago, he would have taken up the offer of the Sound Ninjas and defecting to Orochimaru and the Sound Village. He didn't though, and he was glad that he hadn't. He didn't want to become like Itachi and be a missing ninja. Sasuke wanted to make the Uchiha clan return to their former glory. And it was all thanks to the amount of hard work he had put in over the past 6 months. Compared to what had happened in the previous 6 months before the Chunin exams, which he had learned pretty much nothing, it was quite the opposite for the young Uchiha clan heir. He had gone from low Chunin taijutsu, low to mid Chunin ninjutsu, Genin genjutsu and no kenjutsu whatsoever to high Chunin taijutsu, low Jonin ninjutsu, high Chunin genjutsu and high Chunin, bordering on Jonin level kenjutsu. He had to thank the multitude of senseis over the recent months, as he knew that if it wasn't for them, he would be nowhere near as strong as what he was now. Despite this, there was still much more room for improvement as far as the Uchiha Special Jonin was concerned. Yes, despite not getting the rank of Hokage from being a candidate, he did get a promotion to Jonin. He was even informed that if he kept a similar rate of progress over the next 6 months again, he would become a fully fledged Jonin, something which Itachi never managed to accomplish. Sure, he may have been skilled enough to take the exam and pass with flying colors, but it was something he never did as he was in the ANBU. It would be a source of pride for Sasuke if was able to do something that Itachi couldn't. Sure, he was still a little bit salty over Naruto getting the position and not him, but he didn't mind it all that much. Sasuke would have turned down the position after much thought. It was the reason why he didn't put that much effort into the diplomatic side of the process. The special Jonin was grateful that it was Naruto, and not Konohamaru, that had received the position. Whereas Sasuke was sitting down calmly taking the news that he wasn't going to become the Hokage, Konohamaru was on the other end of the spectrum. He was beyond frustrated at what he believed to be the wrong decision. Naruto isn't the best person to lead Konoha into the future. I am. He doesn't live and breathe the village like I do. All he cares about is money. He hasn't had to go through any hardships like I have had with the Kyuubi. He doesn't deserve it like I do. I'm even the grandson of the previous Hokage. If anyone was going to become the Hokage, it should have been me. As the internal monologue of Konohamaru went on, he went through jutsu after jutsu in the training ground. What he didn't notice was that during this time, he had already started accessing the Kyuubi's chakra. Every jutsu that he was creating was becoming that much more potent. Konohamaru! You're accessing the Kyuubi's chakra! Snap out of it! Jiraiya mentioned, grabbing the attention of the Sarutobi boy. He immediately turned around, happy to find someone that he could vent to about this whole situation. Why did I get the role? My ninjutsu is the best out of the three of us. I have the Kyuubi backing me and I'm probably the strongest fighter. Konohamaru complained. Not that he had a fight with either Sasuke or Naruto going all out recently. Jiraiya for his part was glad to see the change in color in Konohamaru's eyes. That is part of the reason why you didn't get the role, Gaki. The position of Hokage is more than just being a ninjutsu juggernaut. You spent all your time over the past 6 months learning more ninjutsu and becoming a stronger fighter, that you didn't pay much thought to the diplomatic side of being the Hokage. Newsflash, kiddo, they are both just as important as one another, something that you should have picked up on given that Sarutobi-sensei was your grandfather. I get that you need to be good at politics to become the Hokage, but those are skills that you can learn on the job. You can't protect your village if you aren't strong enough. Konohamaru replied back, agitated. Protecting the village isn't one shinobi's responsibility, brat. You can't be expected to protect the whole entire village by yourself, especially at this age. Just think, brat, you have been out of the academy only for 1 year. You, Naruto or Sasuke are nowhere near the level when you can come close to doing what you just talked about. I have 35 years of training on top of you and I am still not at the point where I could single-handedly protect the village. That kind of sobered up Konohamaru. Jiraiya continued on. Look, Konohamaru, even if Naruto doesn't work out as the Hokage, he is initially going to be on a temporary contract for the position, meaning that if he isn't good enough in 1 year's time, he will be removed from the role and it will be up for grabs again. What the Toad Sannin didn't say was that he thought that Naruto was going to do a fine job and not get removed from the position. Hearing this, it definitely lifted the spirits of the special Jonin. Sarutobi Konohamaru perked up. Really? Alright then, Arrow Sennin, what do you think I need to improve on the most to make sure that if Naruto screws up, I am able to take his place? Annoyed at the Arrow Sennin remark, Jiraiya spoke up. Well, to be honest, the areas that you excel in, you excel greater than what either Naruto or Sasuke do in their respective areas. As this filtered into his ears, Konohamaru couldn't help but smirk. That quickly changed, however, as Jiraiya continued speaking. However, your weaknesses are far greater than those of Naruto or Sasuke, relative to the areas that you are weak in. You need to improve your taijutsu a fair bit, your jinjutsu a large amount, and also branch out into other areas, like say fuinjutsu, especially since you are a Jinchuriki. The special Jonin didn't like hearing that. The reason why he didn't train those as much was because he wasn't as good at those disciplines. They didn't come as naturally to him as ninjutsu did. The special Jonin also knew that if he mentioned this to his sensei, he would come off across as a petulant child. In addition, you drastically need to work on your diplomatic skills. I mean, come on, that 500-word essay that you wrote was nothing. Naruto wrote a 10,000-word one. Konohamaru's face morphed into a shocked expression when he heard this. But I hate writing and all that crap. It was at this point that Konohamaru had a realization. He had only ever been doing the fun stuff when it came to training to become the Hokage. He had never done the tasks that weren't fun or easy. I've got to take this seriously. There had to be things that Gramps hated doing that he knew that he had to do. With renewed vigor, Konohamaru made a pact with himself that he was going to train in the areas that he wasn't good at. Thanks, Jiraiya-sensei. I have a lot to think about, Konohamaru replied before using the body flicker jutsu. After his first official day as the Hokage, Naruto was finally able to leave work and go home and enjoy himself. With the inauguration happening tomorrow, there were 3 people he wanted to talk to this about before it was announced to the public. After organizing it with Chusa Akimichi, Naruto was able to book one of the private rooms in one of their famous restaurants, equipped with silencing seals, allowing for an intimate party. Naruto was the first to arrive, dressed in a collared dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms, and wearing a pair of light denim jeans, with a pair of leather shoes. The first person who arrived was his sensei Asuma Sarutobi. He was wearing a similar clothes to Naruto, although he was wearing a collarless shirt. Hey sensei, how's it going? I have been fairly busy over the past few days, so I haven't seen you as much as I would have liked, Naruto said with a bit of a frown. It's all good, kid. If my hunch is correct, I don't see that changing anytime soon, Asuma said with a smirk on his face. Although officially he didn't know the result, he was confident in his student that he would be able to take the job. After all, it said a lot about himself if he was the one who taught the Hokage. Yeah, things are going to be quite hectic for me from now on. The cool thing now, though, is that I get to be your boss and not the other way round, the blonde-haired teenager said with a smirk on his face. As if I would ever listen to you. Come here, you midget, Asuma said before giving a hug to his student. He was immensely proud for what Naruto had accomplished. Thanks. I never could have achieved any of this if it wasn't for your help, Asuma-sensei. If you didn't take a chance on me when a spot became available on your team, I doubt that I would have been able to even make the rank of Chunin, let alone what has happened over the past few months without your guidance and support, Naruto earnestly stated. Asuma smiled. I merely gave you the opportunity, Naruto. You grasped it with both hands and made it your bitch. I'm proud of you. Before the two could go on, 2 more people arrived into the booth. Ino Yamanaka walked by as if she owned the place. Her confidence was that high. There was a bright smile on her face, which Naruto hoped was because of the night before. She was wearing a strapless satin red dress that flared out at the waist. The blonde who had hair down, much like last night, wore a pair of matching red heels. Naruto couldn't keep his eyes off Ino. Ino couldn't keep her eyes of Naruto. Both Choji and Asuma, who were looking on, knew that something had definitely happened between the 2 former teammates. They just didn't know what. Alright, before Naruto gets to talk about a few things, there's something that I want to say. Sit down, you guys. Naruto quickly said hello to Choji and apologized for what happened 6 months ago before they left for the capital as he heard Asuma speak. As they sat down, Choji and Asuma sat on one side of the booth whilst Naruto and Ino sat on the other side, something which they didn't mind at all. Ino even went so far as to grab a hold of Naruto's hand under the table. The blonde-haired boy immediately squeezed back. Now, due to the hectic events of the Chunin exams, I never got to do something that I planned on doing. As the sensei of the former Team 10 said this, he pulled out 3 small boxes. These earrings are all the exact same. They symbolize the fact that no matter what happens, you will always have a part of the team inside of you and that you are now officially, in the eyes of Konoha, adults. Thank you, Asuma-sensei, Choji mentioned with a big grin on his face. He immediately put the earrings in his pocket, making sure that he didn't lose them. Naruto did much the same thing. Ino, on the other hand, started changing them at the table, given that she was the only one who currently had her ears pierced. Naruto was the next one to speak up. Now there's a reason why I booked this room with the silencing seals instead of just a regular room. This got the attention of both Choji and Ino. They wanted to know what was so important. Ino especially, as the self-appointed gossip queen of Konoha. So tomorrow I'm going to be revealing what I say tonight to the public, but I thought that it would be better to tell you guys first. Spit it out already. Ino grumbled. Her patience for hearing gossip was very tiny. Naruto smirked as he looked at his friend. He wasn't sure what to call her, as they didn't really talk about it at all last night. Well, I guess I'll get on with it then, Naruto said as he saw the Choji hanging off the edge of his seat. I found out who my parents were. Stunned silence came from his two former teammates. They knew that this was a sensitive topic for Naruto. They hoped it was positive. How did it go? Ino was the first person to ask, gripping Naruto's hand under the table. He paused for a second and stared into her eyes and smiled. He loved the fact that she really cared about him. It went well. I found out that they both died in the Kyuubi attack and gave their lives to protect the village. My mother's name is Kushina Uzumaki, which is where I got my last name from, as they didn't want me to have to suffer from my father's enemies coming after me. I'm sorry to hear that they have passed away, Naruto. Choji, knowing how hard death was to deal with. The blonde-haired teenager smiled. It's okay, Choji. I know that if they were here, they would be proud of the person I became. My father, well, you all know him as the guy with the face on the rock, Naruto said with a sheepish grin on his face. He didn't know how else to say it without it coming across as pompous. It took half a second for Ino to realize what he meant. Oh my God! I mean, I always thought you looked similar, but I never thought that that was because you're his son. Now that I know the relation, I can't believe that I didn't see it sooner. As Ino was saying this, Choji also realized who it was that Naruto was referring to. Wow, so your father is the fourth Hokage? I didn't expect that, Choji replied, not doubting for a second if what Naruto was saying was the truth. Yeah, I was pretty shocked when I found out. As it turns out, Kakashi-sensei was the one who told me. Both Ino and Choji knew how much Naruto wasn't a fan of Kakashi, so it just went to show how much had changed. The whole reason why he failed me was because he didn't want to train me, as everyone that has ever been close to him has died. He didn't want his sensei's son to also suffer from the same fate. Frankly, I am pretty glad that he did that. If it wasn't for that decision, I wouldn't have ended up on Team 10 and met you guys. You guys have changed my life for the better, Naruto said, wearing his heart on his sleeve. Congratulations, Naruto, Ino said whilst giving Naruto a hug from the side. He smiled and immediately returned it. He didn't want to let go. Yeah, so if you think that that is surprising, the new news that came about this morning will surprise you even more, Naruto boldly claimed. Both Choji and Ino, who were listening on, were surprised. Sure, they believed Naruto, but they doubted that something could be as shocking as that. Boy, were they wrong. Naruto spoke up. Straight after the Chunin exams, they needed to decide on who the Hokage was going to be. In the end, they couldn't decide on who it was going to be. That's why Danzo was the interim leader as the current ANBU commander. They made the decision that they would do a training program for 3 individuals, and by the end of it, one of them would become the Hokage. Despite where Naruto was leading the conversation, Ino refused to believe it. There was no way that the person who was a Genin 7 months ago was now going to become the Hokage. Choji was in the same boat. He seriously doubted that Naruto was the new Hokage of Konoha. I was one of the people in the competition thanks to my efforts in the Chunin exams, killing the former Jinchuriki of the Ichibi. I did well in all of the tests, and officially, as of last night, I am the Godame Hokage of Konoha. Looks of disbelief quickly filtered onto the faces of Ino and Choji. They couldn't believe their teammate, who they doubted became a Jonin, managed to jump straight from Chunin to Kage. Come on, Naruto, don't bullshit with us. There's no way that you could have become the Hokage. I mean, wouldn't they pick Asuma-sensei before you? Ino questioned, to which Choji nodded. Whilst he knew that there would be skepticism from people, Naruto was a bit miffed that they believe him. I'm serious, you can even ask Asuma-sensei about this. I was appointed the Hokage this morning and there will be a coronation tomorrow morning. Is he really telling the truth, Asuma-sensei? Choji questioned. If it was true, he would be extremely happy, but it just seemed surreal that Naruto was going to become the most powerful man in Konoha. Yes, Choji, Naruto will be sworn in tomorrow as the Godame Hokage of Konoha, Asuma said whilst nodding. Even he found it a bit surreal. Wow, congratulations then, Naruto. I reckon you will be a great Kage. With a smile on his face, Choji offered a fist bump which Naruto readily returned. Thanks, Choji, that really means a lot to me, Naruto gratefully said. It is still so hard to wrap my head around you being the most powerful man in Konoha. Congratulations though, Naruto, you have put in heaps of effort, and you deserve every reward you get for it, Ino said before giving her blonde teammate yet another hug. This one was slightly longer than the last one. She really was proud of Naruto and all of his accomplishments. There was one thing about Naruto becoming the Hokage of Konoha that didn't sit right with Ino, and that was that Naruto was set to become the most eligible bachelor in the village. She didn't like the sound of that. It finally dawned on Naruto as he was speaking about it with his teammates, that he was the Hokage of Konoha. He had so many lives in his hands. Are you nervous about being the Hokage? Ino quietly asked. Much like the night before, the two of them ended up cuddling on the green grass that made up the Uzumaki compound. I'm terrified, Naruto freely admitted in the privacy of his home. I'm scared that every single minor mistake that I make is one that can lead to a family being ripped apart. For what it's worth, Naruto, I truly believe that you will be a great Hokage. I think you care about those around you a lot and the village. I know that you are strong and a great shinobi, you're smart, and you have a way with words would make a politician envy you. I know you will be amazing in the role, Hokage-sama, Ino said with a massive smile on her face. She doubted that she could ever be happier than what she was in this point in time. Staring into piercing blue eyes, Naruto melted. He didn't know what to say that would be equivalent to what Ino just said. With a few choice words, she got rid of all of his fears, at least for the moment, and filled him with the utmost confidence. So he settled on kissing her again. To be honest, he didn't really need a reason like the one he just had to kiss Ino. Unlike the kisses from the night before, Ino noticed when Naruto opened his mouth slightly and grabbed onto his bottom and lightly bit on it before pulling it towards herself. MMHH, Naruto moaned into Ino's mouth, causing the platinum blonde to smirk, her teeth holding Naruto's bottom lip. Those magazines she read were definitely paying off. The newly minted Hokage had also heard about tongue kissing. He pushed his tongue into Ino's mouth as far as he could, not fully sure what to do. Ino quickly broke off the kiss. Next time don't try and stick your tongue down the back of my throat. It's like you're trying to suffocate me. Embarrassed at his lack of apparent kissing skills, Naruto tried to focus on the positives whilst remembering that tidbit for the future. Next time? Naruto questioned with an eager expression on his face. How about now? The boy questioned before placing his hand on the back of Ino's neck, underneath her hair. When he did this, Naruto essentially turned Ino into putty. There were a few more, next times. Each time, both parties getting bolder in the roaming of hands across bodies. It's getting chilly, Naruto-kun. I may need to get a jumper, Ino said, not wanting to make the night end. She was fairly confident that she would have to go back to the capital tomorrow, and with Naruto being the Hokage, she doubted that he would have much time to see her. I have another idea, Naruto said before he grabbed Ino in an embrace and started channeling fire chakra all throughout his body. He quickly heated up and then did the same thing to Ino's bare skin. Oh boy, man, this is good. I could definitely get used to this. As the Yamanaka clan heiress said this, she snuggled further into Naruto, which he did not mind one bit. Sobering herself up, Ino rested on Naruto's chest, one which she very much liked, and got serious. Hesitantly, Ino spoke up, afraid of the next conversation but knowing that they had to have it. Hey Naruto, what are we? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend? I mean, I am really happy spending time with you like this, but we are going to be going away from each other for a long time. The earliest I can come back to Konoha on a permanent basis is in a year and a half. A frown appeared on Naruto's face. Yeah, as much as I would like to, I don't know how we could maintain a boyfriend-girlfriend situation with all that time and space away from one another. Plus, with me being a Hokage, I won't have the time to really focus on anything but work for at least the next year. Ino released a sigh of relief. She was glad that they were both on the same page. She would have hated if Naruto wanted a relationship when she wasn't in the position to commit to one. The fact that they were both still teenagers was not lost on either one. They had tons of time before even thinking about a relationship. Maybe we should just not commit to anything, and if either one of us finds someone that we want to date during the meantime, we are free to engage in that. And if when I come back to Konoha permanently and both of us are single, we can think about it then? Hearing what Ino had to say, Naruto agreed. It wasn't fair on either one of them to try and force a relationship long distance. Yeah, and if we see each other during the time when you are in the capital, then anything is up for grabs, Naruto said with a smirk on his face before re-engaging Ino into a searing kiss, happy with the outcome they agreed on. Chapter 21, Out of the Darkness. It is with great pleasure that I announce, as daimyo of Fire Country, that the Godame Hokage of Konoha has been decided. Cheers chorused through the area as Akira greeted the crowd of nearly 200,000 people. The decision process my colleagues and I went through was a grueling 6-month process, but we have come to a decision in which we believe will serve Konoha the best going into the future. Looking down at all of the patient people, Akira decided to get to the part that everyone was here for. Without further ado, I will state that the person chosen to become the Godame Hokage is one who has the Hokage title in his genetics. His mother is a member of the sister clan of the Ninjas, and his father was none other than the Yandame Hokage. May I present to you your new Godame Hokage, Naruto Uzumaki. As Akira said this, Naruto used the body flicker to appear on the platform. Stunned silence filled the area before raucous applause erupted. The large majority of this was coming from the civilians in the crowd. They had seen Naruto win the most recent Chunin exams and thought that he was very good. The shinobi, however, especially the jonin that weren't already aware of the decision-making process, were very skeptical. Sure, they knew that he had potential, he was a very promising shinobi, but to give him the position of Hokage? Well, that was definitely something that they did not see coming. Hearing a colleague questioning if the people in charge had gone senile, one Anko Mitarashi spoke up. Hey, don't question the kid until you have seen him in action. I was one of the Chunin exam proctors, so I had to read up on his file, and I have also done a few missions with him, so I know him fairly well. The Gaki is an absolute freak. 12 months ago, he was a Genin without a team. 6 months ago he won the Chunin exams and killed a Jinchuriki. These days, he is already a Jonin-level shinobi who could hold his own against pretty much any shinobi in the village. It's clear that they are trying to play the long game with giving the brat the role. Just imagine, if he went from Genin to Jonin in a year, just how strong will he be in a year's time, 5 years' time, a decade? Plus, also, the kid is just starting to hit puberty, so he will continue to grow even stronger. Not that I'm not disagreeing with you, but can't make someone Hokage with just potential. They need to be a highly skilled ninja before they take the role. How can he defend us if, say, a Wagakure come and try and start the next war? I'm sure those cunts will do anything to kill the son of Yandame-sama. The Jonin replied back to the purple-haired woman. I bet they are going to have Jiraiya hang around a fair over the next few years to be a threat to any villages who think we are easy pickings. Plus, we also have our Jinchuriki, who is a master of all 5 elements, and he has enough chakra blow up multiple mountains. Thanks to Naruto killing the Jinchuriki from the Sand Village, we didn't lose as many people as we could have. True, I guess we will just have to see how this works out then, huh? These next few months will definitely be interesting. As this conversation was going on, one person in particular was cheering the loudest. That was none other than Rock Lee. Yash Naruto-kun! Your flames of youth burn brightly. I shall support you in your new role, and if I cannot, then I will do 1,000 pull-ups, and if I cannot do that, then I will do 10,000 sit-ups. Tenten had long tuned out of her teammate's speech. Instead, she focused on what was in front of her. Never in a million years, if someone had told her in the academy that Naruto Uzumaki would become the Hokage, would she have believed them. Naruto wasn't even the best in the class. That title went to Ninjaa, plus he didn't even have a team for a year. She was happy for him, but wondered whether or not there was someone else who was a bit more qualified for the role. She was happy for Naruto, but to be honest, it made her feel a bit inadequate about herself. Naruto had gone from Genin to Kage in the same space of time that she barely managed to go from Genin to Chunin. Is the gulf in skill between the two of us really that much? I mean, we haven't been on a mission together in a long time, but he can't be that good, can he? Oh well, at least he is cute. I haven't been getting much luck from Ninjaa, so it might not hurt to ask out Naruto-san. Much like Tenten, Ninjaa didn't quite believe that Naruto had the skill required to become the Hokage. He saw the potential that Naruto had and noticed how much he had improved from the Genin exams to the Chunin exams, but he was not at the level of what was required to be a Hokage. I must ask him to spar with me. I need to see how far off I am of that level. A Hyuga of similar age on the other side of the area was Hinata. If she was completely honest with herself, she was a bit disappointed. She knew that it was Kimimaro-kun's dream to become the Hokage, and with someone as young as Naruto taking over, it all but ended his chances of becoming the Hokage. She knew Naruto was strong, however, and hoped that he would lead Konoha into great prosperity. Kiba, who was looking, had a large amount of jealousy flowing through his body. He wished he was the one up there, getting all that attention and fame. He didn't believe that the kid who was in the Chunin exams was good enough to become the Hokage of Konoha. He had improved a lot over the past 6 months, and just got the rank of Chunin. The Inuzuka wanted to challenge Naruto, and see how good he really was. The Aburane clan heir was impressed that Konoha was willing to make such a progressive choice in Hokage. He was interested in seeing how Naruto as Hokage would play out. He hoped it was for the best. Kurenai, unaware of what her students were thinking, had her own opinion on Naruto becoming Hokage. When she tested Sasuke on his genjutsu, she was impressed, but it was nothing remarkable. Naruto's was even worse, she imagined, given that the boy didn't have the Sharingan. She wasn't exactly thrilled with the choice in the Hokage, and that was not because she was going to never hear the end of it from Asuma. Guy, for his part, was proud. Although Naruto was officially Asuma's student, he couldn't help but have pride in Naruto becoming the Hokage. After Naruto healed Lee of his career-ending injury, Guy had been teaching Naruto on how to make his bloodline limit as devastating as possible. Within 6 months, Naruto was the second best taijutsu user in the village, and the only reason Guy still held on to the top spot was due to the 8 gates. In a pure taijutsu battle, the only people that he knew could go toe-to-toe with Naruto would be Hayashi and Kakashi. You would be proud, Minato-sensei and Kushina-sensei. Naruto has become a fine young man that everyone can rely on, and I wish you were here today to see him stand on that platform. I hope Naruto gets the reign as Hokage that you should have had, sensei. I'll do my best to guide Naruto to making the decisions that are best for the village. After the celebrations had died down, Naruto quickly got back to business. The final term of the year for the Shinobi Academy had just ended, and now was the best time to enact his first change as Hokage. Please bring the entire academy staff into the meeting room, Anbu-san, Naruto stated, watching as the ninja went off and did their job. Shortly after giving the command, the newly minted Kage headed off into the same meeting room. Now you might be all wondering why I brought you here, Naruto said to all of the teachers, giving a small smile to his own teacher Suzume from when he was in the academy. Firstly, I just want to congratulate you all on doing a good job. I know a lot of people don't give teachers the credit they deserve for guiding the next generation, as you're not just teachers but also role models. I know this from first-hand experience that I wouldn't be where I am today without the various role models I have had in my life. As he said this, all of the teachers had a smile on their faces. It was no secret that many people looked down on teachers, the famous saying being, "Those who can't do, teach." It felt great for the Hokage to tell them how good they were doing at a normally looked down upon job. The reason why I have brought you here though is because I want to completely overhaul the academy. Naruto let that sink in the air for a few moments, and waited for someone to speak up. That was Suzume. Hokage-sama, what do you mean? Suzume bravely questioned. You can just call me Naruto-san, Suzume-sensei. The blonde Kage said with a smile on his face, causing the shy woman to blush slightly, happy that the Hokage called her sensei still. It filled her with great pride. For too many years, Konoha has been far too reliant on individual brilliance to win wars. Whilst I definitely believe that the contributions of the larger military force were significant, as a hidden village, we rely more on our elite shinobi compared to our enemies. If we can raise the quality of each shinobi, we will become less reliant on creating the next Minato Namikes. How do you plan on changing that, Hokage-sama? Ichiraku questioned, slightly hesitant to hear the answer. Naruto smiled. In a nutshell, I plan on redeveloping the curriculum taught in the academy to focus less on theoretical knowledge and more on practical skills. I know that my appointment to Hokage will be seen as a weakness in the eyes of the other villages. As much as I don't want to prepare the students for war, I would rather prepare them for it and not require them to participate than to force them when they are not sufficiently prepared. The cold truth was a bitter pill for Naruto to swallow. He did not like having to admit that he had to do this. The pragmatic side of him, though, knew that this needed to be done. To do this, my plan is to move away from one teacher teaching one-year group for the entire year. Instead, the model that we will be going towards is the secondary model for civilians, where you have a teacher who specializes in one subject teach it for all year levels. But how would the children react to that? They have dependency issues and wish to have a single teacher. The younger the age of the person, the abler they are to adapt to change. There will be a few teething issues with this system, but the end result will be better. The current academy system, from my experience, is flawed in the sense that it places too much emphasis on becoming a good shinobi on clans and the Jonin sensei once they graduate. For a child like myself who came from the orphanage and didn't have any form of shinobi background to call upon, I was at a severe disadvantage to the likes of Niji Hyuga, who was the rookie of the year in my class. They could not deny that Naruto was right. Children that came from a clan had a noticeable advantage over civilian children. Also, there are different learning styles that differ between children. So just like the elite civilian schools, you will be sent to personal development courses which will allow you to tailor your classwork for each individual student so that they can get the most out of their education. Naruto, as he said this, noticed that Suzume and Ichiraku were smiling. It's obvious to see that they care about their students. Ichiraku seems like is going to take this challenge head on, which is great to see. Hopefully the others will come around. If not, are there any suggestions on how we should structure the curriculum, Hokage-sama? Ichiraku questioned whilst the teachers looked on, eager to see how things would change. Well, teaching is not my area of expertise, so I will leave it mostly up to you, but here is the base outline of what I would like. Remember, this is the initial consultation, so we will have a few more meetings over the next month and a half before school goes back to finalize everything. We owe much of our academy's material to the Senju clan, as they had the largest private library of any ninja clan. At the time, though, they didn't really have a budget to fund an expansive academy like what we do now. Sorry, Naruto-san, for interrupting, but did you mention something along the lines of a budget increase? Suzume questioned, giddy with excitement. All of the other teachers in the room also looked on with eagerness. Seeing the looks on their faces, Naruto smirked. He knew saying something like that was akin to saying free buffet right outside the Akimichi clan compound. Yes, there will be significant increase in academy funding. Back to my main point though, the academy was funded on a smaller budget, therefore they had to cut some corners. The Senju clan have 5 different taijutsu styles. One of them became the one you know as the Academy Taijutsu style. Each of the 5 taijutsu styles represent an element, and it is why I found it very easy to learn the Academy Taijutsu style, as it is based around the fire element. For someone who had a wind element, it would make it significantly harder to learn the something that would be much less effective than if they learnt the wind-based taijutsu style. I want to implement the 5 taijutsu styles to the curriculum and, based on an elemental affinity test, teach the student their taijutsu. This would also segue into ninjutsu training. I don't think it is out of the question for an academy student by the time they graduate with the proper guidance, to learn 1 offensive and 1 defensive C-rank ninjutsu from their respective element, given I managed to do this one from leaving the academy without a teacher. Teaching elemental ninjutsu to an academy student? Isn't that a bit much? One of the teachers in the room questioned. It seemed like quite a lot taken. Children at these ages are surprisingly adaptable to new forms of stimulus. The worst that we can do is trial this for a semester and realize that it is hindering their performances in other areas and revert back some of the curriculum. The meeting went on for another hour, hashing out a few finer points of that would give the academy to work with. With everything finished up, and people looking to leave the room, Naruto spoke up. Just one last thing before you leave, he said, getting their attention before continuing on. By the way, effective immediately, you are now on 6-month temporary contracts at the academy. At the end of semester 1, you will have a performance review, and if you are not up to the standards Konoha expects, you will be removed from the academy and put into active duty. See ya, Naruto said before using the body flicker jutsu to leave with a few embers left in his wake. It was widely known that the academy was seen as a place where you could relax and slack off. Quite a few of the teachers started to panic. Ichiraku, for one, was the complete opposite. Bring it on! Knowing what was going to happen that day, Jiraiya didn't bother sticking around to see Naruto get coronated as the Hokage of Konoha. Instead, he headed off in the last known direction that his spies had reported his former teammate. Jiraiya agreed with Naruto in that Sarutobi-sensei had spent a lot of time giving Tsunade preferential treatment, spending time outside of the village. With Konoha being hit recently by the sand invasion, they needed every bit of help that they could get to regain their position in the world. This was especially so with Naruto taking over as the Hokage. Sure, he had a lot of faith in the boy and knew that he had the potential to become a great Hokage, but as of now, Naruto was Jonin-level material, not Hokage. Naruto stood in the private Hokage training grounds, theory crafting his 2 new jutsus. A month ago, Naruto saw some civilian kids playing a video game through a shop front window and noticed that 2 of the kids that the 2 characters they were playing as were made up of bones. Always interested in new ways to potentially use his bloodline limit, Naruto walked in and came over and watched them. After giving a quick introduction, the kids were happy to have him watch them play. Naruto then offered to pay for the next 2 hours of playtime as long as he could talk to them for about half an hour beforehand about said 2 characters they were playing as. One of them was apparently called the Skeleton King, and the one was called the Bone Fletcher. This worked out well for Naruto as one was ranged shooter and the other was a melee ranged fighter. In tandem, he hoped that they could be a significant threat to an enemy. A month later and Naruto had managed to do the easy part. That was creating the warriors externally out of his bone, and using his chakra to make their bodies work. The hard part was the next bit. Naruto knew that he wouldn't be able to control this jutsu whilst also fighting an enemy. He needed it to become sentient. Naruto needed it to be able to listen to a command and then go off and do it without him having to oversee every move. Thanks to a bit of help from his not-girlfriend Ino Yamanaka, Naruto had a few new ideas that he wanted to try to get these jutsus working. Channeling the advice that Ino had given him, Naruto went through some hand seals and placed his hands on the ground. Uzumaki Hijitsu, Sukuru Tankinku. Uzumaki's secret style, Skeleton King. Much like the last few times that he had attempted the jutsu, Naruto watched on as the Skeleton came to life. Naruto was giddy as he had even managed to create a cape for the warrior. Unlike the last few times though, Naruto noticed that there was fire behind the eyes of the skeleton. "My name is Leoric and I am at your service, my liege," Leoric stated as he bowed down, digging his sword into the ground. "Fuck yeah! This is awesome! Alright Leoric-san, I want you to fight me and show me everything you have got." With that said, the Skeleton King charged. "Well, it didn't take as long as I thought to find you again, Tsunade-chan," Jiraiya commented with a grin on his face. Grunting at the sight of her former teammate, Tsunade replied. What is it that you want, Jiraiya? Have you come to buy more of the Senju compound with your riches from that stupid perverted book series? Geez, can't you be happy for my success rather than be jealous? Jiraiya replied back. He wasn't really in the mood to play these games. Affronted by the comment, Tsunade had a look of disgust on her face. As if I would ever be jealous of that filth. Jiraiya shrugged his shoulders and rolled his eyes. You're coming back to Konoha, Jiraiya said with a neutral expression on his face. PSSHH, no, I am not Jiraiya. There's no way I am going back to that wretched village. Tsunade flippantly responded to Jiraiya, before turning around and giving her attention to the poker machine she was in front of. Alright then, I guess we will play this the hard way. Seeing that Tsunade was still not paying any attention to him, Jiraiya turned and faced Shizen. Said woman got fearful. This Jiraiya who was in front of her was different from the jovial one that she met up with months ago. This was one of the Sannin. Shizen, you are officially ordered by the Godame Hokage of Konoha to return back to the village. If you don't return via your own choice, then I will make you return by force. Jiraiya said, laying down the threat. This was enough to moderately sober up Tsunade and take an interest in the conversation. What the hell, Jiraiya? Your problem is with me, not her, so leave her out of this. Plus, what did you say about the new Godame Hokage? I guess that must have got some new fool to take the hat, huh? Who is it? I bet it's that Gaki Kakashi. Ignoring Tsunade, knowing that she was trying to redirect the conversation, Jiraiya focused on the easiest way he knew how to get Tsunade back to Konoha. That was through manipulating Shizen. Look, Nade, don't make this any harder than it has to be. We are still reeling from the blow dealt by the Sand invasion, and we need to get as many qualified medics as possible to help out. Also, Shizen, the new Hokage, is looking to change the curriculum at the academy, so we will need some guidance from someone experienced like yourself, Shizen, on how to effectively incorporate medical ninjutsu into the academy curriculum. Jiraiya said, knowing that this was a trigger topic for Tsunade. You've got until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning to make up your decision and meet me at the edge of town heading towards Konoha. If you aren't there, I will know that you have decided to become a missing ninja of Konoha, and I will track you down and bring you back by force. Even if that means going through Tsunade to get to you, Jiraiya said before vanishing in a flicker of leaves. The second that Jiraiya left, Tsunade's eyes turned and zeroed in on her student. Noticing this gaze, Shizen spoke up. Look, Tsunade-sama, I need some time to think for myself, Shizen said before vanishing, much like Jiraiya did moments before. A feeling of emptiness rocked the blonde-haired woman to her core. Feelings of betrayal flooded through her body, and her heart felt like it had been ripped out of her chest. Damn, Jiraiya having to ruin everything. Why does he have to take the last bit of happiness away from me? Also, who the fuck is the new Hokage, and who do they think they are threatening us like that? If Shizen has to go back to Konoha, then I will go back and rip their throat out. News traveled quickly, and the news that Konoha had made the ninja who had killed her little brother Kage hit Temari like a ton of bricks. How can I gain revenge for killing Gaara if he is the Hokage? Is he really that strong? Was he holding back when he fought against Gaara? There's no way one can go from Genin to Kage in 6 months. Arf! Temari screamed as she swung her fan in outrage as a desert mountain, nearly slicing the structure in 2 clean parts. If he managed to become a Kage, then so can I. I will just have to train hard and get the position when Baki-sensei is no longer the interim leader. It wasn't just Sunagakure where the news of Naruto Uzumaki becoming the recent Hokage of Konoha. Kimimaro had also heard of the news. The Yondaime Raikage was both impressed and curious as to how someone so young managed to become a Hokage. Sure, he knew that the boy was the enemy of his rival, but it was a stretch to say that this Naruto kid was as good as his father. Samui-san, I have a mission for you. You shall be the ambassador to Konoha. That Kagaya bloodline would definitely strengthen our village if Samui managed to get her hands on it. Ever the opportunist, I thought of the best way to increase the strength of the village. Curse you, brat, why did you have to go and make my life so difficult? Anoki muttered to himself. He desperately wished that Naruto was not the Hokage. This was not out of fear that the boy knew the Flying Thunder God Jutsu no, this was because he knew exactly what his retarded daimyo was going to do when he found out the information that Naruto was now the Hokage of Konoha, much like his father was several decades ago. Might as well get this over with. Inoki thought to himself as he started writing down the names of 10 jonin who he knew greatly despised the Yellow Flash. It was almost clockwork that by the time that the Tsuchikage had finished writing the names down on the paper, the Earth Daimyo entered the room. Just shut up and take this piece of paper. It will tell you everything you will need to know. The daimyo was miffed at the treatment that Inoki was giving him but didn't question it. Now how bad will this clusterfuck of a situation turn out to be? Orochimaru was seething in anger. First, he had not yet managed to gather Sasuke back to his village. The boy apparently managed to fight and kill all of the Sound Four including Kimimaro. How that actually happened he was not sure, but he couldn't look past the evidence. Secondly, he had finally just finished healing from his recent body transformation, and in this time, Naruto had managed to become the Hokage of Konoha. I guess I am going to have to take Sasuke-kun by force, and I might as well kill another Kage whilst I am at it. Masama, I have some recent news. It is in regards to Naruto Uzumaki, Ao said with frustration evident. It was clear to see that this was a sore topic for the man. Ever since Naruto managed to evade the Byakugan with that cloud of chakra-laced smoke, he wanted to redeem himself and capture the ninja for the betterment of Kirigakure. Oh, and what is that? Mei questioned with a smile on her face. Ao had no idea though whether or not that smile meant that he was about to die though. I have just gotten word that Konoha has promoted him to Hokage. Nothing screamed that he was Hokage material earlier when I faced him though, so I have my doubts to his skill level. He is fairly young and still a kid in my eyes to be a Hokage. Kids fairly young. A twitch appeared on the face of Mei. Shut up Ao or I'll kill you. Jiraiya was waiting at the spot he told Shizen about. He had not seen either of the two females since the day before. Tsunade for her part had tried to find Jiraiya, but much to her dismay, she wasn't able to. The blonde-haired woman was beyond frustrated. For the first time in ages, she didn't drink any alcohol from the moment that Shizen left her. Thoughts had plagued her mind. The paramount thought in her mind was that she was not going to influence Shizen's decision, no matter how much she wanted to. She knew that she put her apprentice through a lot over the past decade and a bit. She had to sacrifice a hell of a lot to over the time. Tsunade doubted that Shizen had even had experienced the joys of sex due to her having such a limited social life out on the road. If she was completely honest with herself, she knew that the life that she was currently living was a shell of the one that she could have been living. One that both Dan and Nawaki would look down on her for. It was the reason why she said thanks but no thanks to Orochimaru a few months ago. Whether or not she would return to Konoha, Tsunade was not sure. Her gut feeling told her that Jiraiya was not going to relax if she said no a second time. Speaking of her former teammate, he was acting completely different to the way how he normally acted. Normally, Jiraiya would do something perverted, in an exuberant manner upon meeting her. As much as she hated the perverted side of it, Tsunade privately admitted to herself that she enjoyed the enthusiasm and energy he showed. He was the only one out of the three that wasn't broken. It was gone last night, and when Tsunade saw Jiraiya, he instantly looked 10 years older, despite having seen the man merely a month ago. The woman was worried for her teammate. No matter what had happened in life, he was always jovial and happy. What was it that made him change? She questioned herself the night before and she couldn't come up with an answer. Throughout all of the time she had known him, Jiraiya had seen her at points which were far worse, and yet he stuck around and was still her friend. Now, however, she was not too sure. Tsunade, as she followed Shizen without the woman aware, she wondered what she was going to do. As she mentally said to herself, if Shizen was going to be forced back into the military, then she was going to go back to Konoha and pulverize the new Hokage. If her former teammate wasn't going to tell her who it was, then she was going to find out herself. Chapter 22, And Into the Sun. Can I please see your Konoha registration cards, please? One of the two Chunin gate guards questioned. Hesitation evident on their faces. They had a good idea who two of the ninjas standing in front of him were, but he had to make sure. Sure, Jiraiya replied, having a grin on his face. Tsunade merely grunted whilst giving her own. Shizen politely smiled and handed hers over. Once the tasks were done, they quickly received the cards and headed for the Hokage Tower. Tsunade was eagerly awaiting this moment. On the journey back to Konoha, Jiraiya had remained tight-lipped in regards to who the Hokage was. It only served to make the blonde-haired woman even more curious. The other thing that she was curious but also concerned about was that Jiraiya hadn't made a single perverted remark or action, even to the point where she hadn't noticed him peeking on her when he thought that she wasn't looking. To be completely honest, it unnerved her. Something had distinctly changed in the dynamic between herself and her former teammate, and she was not sure what it was, but she was fairly confident that she didn't like it, even if it did mean no peeking. Shizen was also curious as to what it was that made Jiraiya change. From everything that she had heard about the man over the years from Tsunade, seeing him in the flesh was completely different. He was nothing like the person who her master had told her about, and yet she had no reason to believe that the Sannin would lie. Let's get this over with. I don't want to be here any longer than I have to, Tsunade stated, with a determined look on her face as she quickly jumped onto the building roofs. The other two shinobi quickly followed after her. Wait, Tsunade-sama, the new Hokage may have a meeting, Shizen called out to her sensei as they arrived at the office. Unperturbed in the slightest, Tsunade angrily walked to the door. I don't care! And launched a chakra-enhanced punch to the door, shattering it on impact. NBU members immediately dropped down from their positions, surrounding the Hokage. Looking up from the paperwork in front of him, which was about integrating the civilian workforce into military positions, Naruto sighed as he realized who it was. He had been briefed by his sensei on what to expect upon meeting Tsunade. He was not afraid at all. You're paying for that, you realize, Naruto said with a dry look on his face. Thankfully Naruto wasn't doing anything sensitive before Tsunade barged in. You're a kid, Tsunade said, finger pointing and all as she stared at the choice for the new Hokage. She honestly couldn't believe that they got some kid to take over the most important role in the village from her former sensei. Shizen was in a similar state of shock, but she didn't dare voice her opinion. I am also the Godame Hokage of Konoha, Naruto replied back with an annoyed look on his face. Over the past month, he had constantly been getting used to the fact that no one respected him in the position due to his age. The only difference now was that this was more blatant. There's no way I can respect someone who hasn't even finished puberty, as the Hokage of Konoha, the blonde-haired woman said before turning around and preparing to walk out of the room. This must be some sort of sick joke, putting a child in charge of a shinobi village. Jiraiya, did you have any say in this? As this was said, a pointed stare was directed at the silver-haired man. Then you will officially be labeled a missing ninja of Konoha, and I will order Jiraiya to detain you and lock you up in our maximum security prison before getting Inoichi to extract every bit of information from your body, the new Hokage coolly stated, staring the woman down. Affronted at the suggestion, Tsunade turned around. Just for saying that, I am going to bash your head in, you spoiled brat. Someone ought to teach you manners. Naruto wasn't concerned. How about you put your money where your mouth is? It was enough of a statement for Tsunade to stop and raise her eyebrow, demanding the Uzumaki to continue. How about we have a fight, and if you win, I will allow both yourself and Shizen to leave, all duty to Konoha will be erased, and we will even write off the remaining bout of debt you are in. And what if you win? Tsunade questioned, although she was fairly confident she had an idea what this boy would want. When I win. Naruto made a clear point to emphasize the when, not the if. You and Shizen will agree to spend the next 10 years inside the village. Shizen will either work at the hospital or go on active duty. Tsunade, you will take up the role of Director of Health, where you will be in charge of the Konoha Hospital. In addition to this, you will liaise with the Academy Director to help introduce a new curriculum which emphasizes medical ninjutsu training to all students, Not just one designated student per team, Naruto said, still with the straight face. Kid definitely knows how to poke the trigger points in people. Jiraiya mused to himself. Every single thing that Naruto mentioned that she would be required to do were changes that Tsunade herself had advocated for many decades ago. This was not something that Tsunade was missed either. It was clear that either he had done his research or was at least making the most of the information presented to him, trying to manipulate her. Alright Gaki, let's see what you got right now. If you win, I agree that I will become the director of the hospital, but if I don't, you will waive everything and I will be on my way. After the Senju woman said this, the first sign of emotion appeared on the face of Naruto, a smirk. I wouldn't have it any other way, Tsunade-sama. As they were walking over to the private training ground, Naruto started channeling fire chakra throughout his body to warm it up. That way he could go all out from the start, and not have to worry as much in straining a muscle. Tsunade wasn't doing such a thing. Instead, she was going over in her mind the things she knew about the boy standing beside her. From the little she remembered from the Chunin exams, the boy had some form of bloodline limit, and he could use the fire element fairly well. She still couldn't even remember his name, hoping that that would give more away about the upcoming fight. Despite her initial surprise that Naruto was barely a teenager, and that she wouldn't respect him, Tsunade was no fool in thinking that the kid would at least have some talent to back up being put in the chair. She highly doubted that Konoha had managed to create another Itachi, but it wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility. Having said that, she had seen what Naruto was capable of at the Chunin exams when he had killed the Ichibi. If that was his maximum skill level at the time, then there was no way, despite whatever training he had done up until now, there was no way that he was a Hokage-level shinobi. Are you ready? Naruto questioned as he broke the blonde-haired woman out of her reverie. He was eager to get this battle on. This was the first time that he was going to go up against the caliber of Tsunade, and he wanted to see where he compared. Whilst he had fought A-ranked ninjas before, it was a significant step up to fight against an S-ranked ninja. Sure, he had fought Jiraiya, but with nothing being on the line each time they sparred, it didn't mean as much to the aspiring Uzumaki. Yeah, you're 100 years too young to be able to beat me, kid, Tsunade boasted despite settling into a taijutsu stance. Admittedly, she knew that she could have trained harder of the past few years, but she thought that the fact that she was at least sober would get her over the line. Naruto wasn't taking any chances though. Gate of Life, open! Naruto internally called out as he opened the first of 8 gates and rocketed off of the ground in the direction of Tsunade. As he was sprinting to Tsunade, Naruto quickly activated his bloodline and had bones spurred out in every direction. Surprise filled out Tsunade as she had forgotten about the fact that the new Hokage had the bloodline of the Kagayas. Shit, this just got much harder. He is even capable of channeling fire chakra into each bone. Tsunade thought to herself as she did her best to dodge Naruto. It wasn't enough. Caught by the surprise at the speed in which Naruto moved, Naruto was able to drill one of the bones in his arm into the shoulder of Tsunade. He got a good enough hit to the point where half of the bone had dug in and caused blood to spurt out. Ah! Tsunade cried out, shocked at the amount of pain she was in at having a chunk of flesh being ripped out. As she did this, she couldn't help but look at her arm. The end was essentially sealed with this moment, as the moment that the blonde saw blood, she went catatonic. Naruto wasn't aware of this though, and continued on with the fight. Using the blade at the base of his palm, Naruto slammed it right through the left kidney of Tsunade and channeling fire chakra into her body, spreading it all over. Before Naruto could do any more, Jiraiya came over and pushed Naruto to the side. This fight is over and the winner is Naruto. Shizen, get over here. The late 20s woman didn't need to be told twice and went over to her master immediately, and started healing her as best as she could. Releasing the Gate of Life, Naruto turned around to Jiraiya. What? Why did you stop the fight? We were only just getting started, Naruto said with frustration evident on his face. I didn't think that Tsunade would still be affected by it, but she developed hemophobia, the fear of blood. The second she sees any blood, she goes into a state of shock and is unable to function. Shock appeared on the face of Naruto, as he couldn't believe such a thing for someone as accomplished as Tsunade. Really? Seeing the head nod from Jiraiya, Naruto frowned. Well, I guess that was a bit of a letdown. I was expecting more from your former teammate. Look, I have to get back to the office unless you want to do the paperwork for me? Naruto questioned, to which Jiraiya merely scoffed. Well, catch you around, sensei, the blonde said before disappearing, leaving a few embers in his wake. I want you to spread the rumor of what you saw today. Don't mention that the fight was cancelled due to her hemophobia, but do spread that I won. Public perception was key for the role of Hokage. For Naruto, it was an area where he definitely needed improvement on. It was not that the shinobi and civilian populace hated Naruto, it was just that they didn't believe that he was capable of the job. To the ninjas, they had seen the performance during the Chunin exams, and whilst it was impressive, to think that one could go from potential Chunin to Hokage in 6 months was absurd. He remembered his speech from his inauguration 1 month ago. Flashback. Naruto bowed to the daimyo, thanking him for his previous announcement. As he walked to the stage with chatter happening around him, Naruto looked over at the people that now looked at him for protection. His people. Steeling his nerves, Naruto spoke his first address to the village. Firstly, I want to say thank you to those past and present who have given their lives and so much more to the village. I hope that I can follow in their footsteps and do Konoha proud. As was previously announced, my father is the Yondaime Hokage and my mother is from the Uzumaki clan. I, however, was unaware of this until very recently. Unfortunately, like a lot of other kids, I came from the orphanage with the dreams of merely surviving. As I was able to achieve that goal, I was able to progress to dreaming for something bigger, harder to accomplish. Today, that goal of merely surviving as an orphan child has turned into protecting the village and turning into a place of prosperity. For too long, since the Kyuubi attack, Konoha has been living in a shadow of what it once was. We have been struggling to return to our rightful place on top of the ninja food chain. When the attempted kidnapping of a toddler happened by Kumogakure, we had to sit back and watch as one of our loyal, respected and talented ninjas had to make a noble sacrifice to ensure that Kumo didn't go to war with us. In addition, when we finally got back to a respectable level, Konoha was hit with the joint invasion from Suna and Oto. Thankfully, with the prevention of the Jinchuriki releasing his demon, Konoha didn't suffer as many losses. My point is that our enemies no longer fear us. We don't have a ninja such as Hashirama or my father Minato Namikaze to instill fear into the other villages like we once did. Instead, we have to rely on the will of fire more so than ever and teamwork to win battles. The first change that I am making as Hokage is a radical overhaul on the academy. No longer will children from a clan have such preferential education in becoming a shinobi. The academy will be a lot more expansive, allowing students who come from underprivileged backgrounds to get the education that every child deserves. It will be harder but also easier in that it won't be a generic one-size-fits-all scenario like it currently is at the academy. The academy will be working both the Yamanaka clan and also civilian psychologists who study children learning patterns to come up with the most effective learning style for each student. Also, there will be a minimum graduation age to allow for time for the mental development of our shinobi to prevent something like Itachi happening again. Because if you constantly judge a fish on how well it can climb a tree, it will go its whole life believing that it is stupid. Murmurs broke out after Naruto stopped speaking. Talking ensued on the first point that Naruto had made as Hokage and the solution that he provided to resolve the issue. For many years, many shinobi had believed the academy to be a joke in teaching potential ninja. It focused far too much on civilian theory for the shinobi. They hoped that what their new Hokage was talking about was a bit more hands-on. On the other hand, they heard how he was going to be in consultation with civilians on how to run a ninja academy. That didn't sit too well with them. The thought of preventing another clan massacre at the hands of a gifted prodigy, though, was something that they could get behind. In addition to these changes at the academy, there will also be changes into the administration of Konoha's military. Many positions in the administration of the Konoha military do not require the ability to mold chakra or be fighting fit. The moment that Naruto said this, the eyes of many civilians lit up but also caused a significant amount of Genin to get worried. There were more civilians than Genin though. To increase the number of shinobi that Konoha can call upon, we will be reviewing the structure of the military. If it is deemed that your role is something that does not require any shinobi abilities, your role will be open to the public. You will be able to reapply for your job. Pure outrage came from the shinobi and utter joy came from the civilians in Konoha. How can we trust a civilian to know anything about the military though? One Chunin who used chakra to enhance his vocal cords so everyone could hear him shouted out. Naruto replied, wanting his point to be made loud and clear. How can we trust shinobi? At the end of the day we are all just human. There will be an extensive process in forming a security evaluation on each civilian that takes up a role in the military. The fact is that if someone who has no idea about how the military works and is yet able to do your job more effectively, then they deserve it and you don't. Roles such as finance, logistics and resource management require little knowledge on the Konoha military. If it is easier to train someone with a degree in proven results in finance in the military than it is to a shinobi on everything finance, then we will do it because it is the best thing for the village. This is not to say that every single role will go to a civilian. There will need to be a balance, but the end result is that civilians and shinobi working in tandem to produce the best possible result for Konoha. End flashback. As Naruto broke himself out of his musings, he knew that the next few months were going to be crucial to his appointment as Hokage. Already, 2 reviews had started, one into the administration of Konoha and one into the academy. Soon there was going to be another one into the hospital. If there was one thing that the daimyo stressed when they had spoken in private, at the end of his first day in charge, it was that he wished for a cohesive Konoha. It wasn't just Konoha, but every single shinobi village had a great disconnect between the shinobi force and those that they were serving. Akira had mentioned a single quote that resonated with Naruto. The sum of the parts is greater than the whole. After hearing it and how Akira spoke, Naruto was blind for not seeing it earlier. Konoha preached the will of fire and how teamwork was the best way to live, and yet it was a massive hypocrite of this when it came to internal affairs. There was a severe us versus them mentality that Naruto wanted to get rid of. If they worked together, just like the ninjas did in the field, then it would benefit Konoha. A few shinobi had sparked a protest about the issue, but those funnily enough were only in the positions that field shinobi considered relaxed and you didn't do much work in. The large majority of shinobi, especially the jonin, were for making those doing nothing to get back out in the field or become a civilian. Small protests were immediately outweighed by large support from the civilian sectors, seeing a potential giant boom in the economy through the jobs becoming available to everyone. In a dimly lit bar sat 2 veteran shinobi. I still can't believe that a brat like him is the Hokage of Konoha. Tsunade mused over her sake in her hands. Jiraiya merely had a smirk on his face. Managed to beat you in 5 seconds. No matter who it is, I would say that is pretty impressive. He too had a glass of sake on the table. A scowl appeared on the face of the blonde as Jiraiya said this. He just caught me off guard. If I didn't have this stupid hemophobia, then I would have won that fight. She had to admit though that he was good. The speed in which he closed the distance and fought at was impressive for anyone, let alone a 15-year-old. That and the fact that he had the bloodline of the Kagaya clan flowing through him made him that much more of a dangerous shinobi. It was obvious to her that she had only seen the surface of Naruto's power, and she was curious as to how much more there was under the surface. Keep telling yourself that. Even if Naruto is not a Kage-level shinobi yet, it would still be an even fight between the two of you even if you were at your prime. The kid is real good, Tsunade, and has the potential to be one of the best. I'll give you that he is good, but that is a big claim to make that he could be on the same level as my grandfather. He had to open the first gate to achieve the speed that surprised me. If it wasn't for the use of the first gate straight from the start, then he wouldn't have been fast enough to catch me off guard and causing blood to fall. Jiraiya shook his head. To start off, you haven't seen much of him yet. He still has a fair few tricks up his sleeve that he hasn't shown you. Also, I'm not basing Naruto becoming the best from where he is now but from where he was a bit over a year ago compared to now. It was this that Tsunade was interested in. A bit over a year ago, Naruto was still in the Genin reserves. Kakashi had failed him despite getting the idea of the bell test right, but his two teammates failed it, and thus Naruto was sent to the Genin reserves. Jiraiya mentioned, and the blonde couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. For someone to go from a Genin reserve to Jonin-level shinobi in 1 year was unheard of. In came little Asuma, who had a spot open up on his team due to a death, and Naruto rocked up. He gave Naruto an opportunity, and the boy took it with both hands. Naruto didn't even know about his bloodline until deciding to treat himself with a bit of milk after getting the team. From there, Asuma has been teaching Naruto along with a few other people including myself. He went from being your run-of-the-mill genin with the ability to use one elemental attack outside of the standard 3 Academy jutsus, and in 6 months went to the level of an upper chunin capable of killing the one-tailed Jinchuriki. Half a year later and you saw what he was. I would say he is a jonin bordering on elite jonin. Tsunade, he went from average genin to mid, verging on high-rank jonin in a year. If you tell me that isn't the potential to be one of the very best, then you are full of shit. Surprised at the seriousness in which her former teammate talked, Tsunade took another look at the man in front of her. He really means a lot to you, doesn't he, being Minato's son and all? Tsunade said with a soft voice. She could only imagine what Jiraiya must feel like, having trained 2 Hokages. He does. He is the only person that I have left in this world, and I want to make sure that he doesn't make the same mistakes that I made in life. Jiraiya said before bringing the sake to his mouth. He knew what type of response that this was going to get, and he was prepared for it. This conversation is long overdue. What do you mean he is the only person you have left? Also, what mistakes? I never had a family like you, so I don't have any relatives alive. The closest person I had to a role model has died recently despite us having quite a few issues. Minato, who I viewed as my son in all but blood, has gone, same with Kushina. My former teammate has turned into an abomination of a human. Finally, my best friend, who also happens to be the person I was once in love with, has withered away and turned into a shell of her former self due to depression and alcoholism. Outside of Naruto and the Ika franchise, I don't really have anything positive going on in my life, so yeah. I am a bit defensive over the kid. Jiraiya admitted with a sigh. Shocked was the understatement of the century for Tsunade. She never had heard her former teammate open up about the things that were troubling him. The Senju believed it to be part of the whole macho man image that he had. Sure, she knew that part of the perverted act was indeed an act, but she didn't know how much else was an act. Tonight was the first time that she could remember really opening up and being serious. What do you mean, an alcoholic? I am not an alcoholic. When Tsunade shouted that at Jiraiya, the man merely stared back at his former teammate. Really, Tsunade, you're going to tell me, the person who knows you better than any other person on the planet, that you aren't one? We both know it, whether or not you like to admit it. There's no point in trying to lie to me. Finally, my best friend, who also happens to be the person I was once in love with, has withered away and turned into a shell of her former self due to depression and alcoholism. Am I an alcoholic and depressed? As Tsunade thought over it, she realized that her behavior exhibited all of the signs of depression and attempted to cope by turning to alcohol. I am depressed. Tsunade had a startling realization. Jiraiya, who had seen all of this play out, he was hopeful. Hopeful that he would get his best friend back to her normal self. Seeing this version of Tsunade pained him immeasurably. He wanted the old Tsunade back. I know that this isn't something that you want to hear, but I feel as if it needs to be said regardless. Tsunade, the way that you have been living your life is not the way that they would have wanted you to live. They wanted you to be happy. I want you to be happy. Sarutobi-sensei would have wanted you to be happy. Can you please give my best friend back? I haven't seen her in the good part of 2 decades. Jiraiya pleaded, grasping onto Tsunade's hand, covering it either side with each hand, and stared into her eyes. The blonde woman couldn't help but stare into the raw emotion showing in the eyes of Jiraiya. She looked for a second before she had to turn away. The intensity on display was too much for her. He is right. Nawaki, Dan and Sarutobi-sensei all would want me to be happy. If they ever saw the way I have been living my life over these past years, they would be disappointed in me. Steeling herself as that it felt like a weight had been lifted off of her shoulders, Tsunade with a bright smile stared back into the eyes of Jiraiya. I do, you do, Tsunade quickly said before catching herself and realizing what she said. She's going to take over the hospital and become the director of health. Yes! Jiraiya shouted out in utter jubilation. That's the Jiraiya that I remember, so full of energy. Pretty much a kid in an adult's body. He didn't miss the slip of mouth earlier from Tsunade, but he couldn't care one bit. Ever since the announcement that Kushina was pregnant with Naruto, this was the best news he had heard. Without thinking, Jiraiya quickly got out of the booth, grabbed the hand of Tsunade that he was previously holding onto, and yanked her out of the booth. The silver-haired man lifted the woman up and held onto her tightly as he twirled around. Jiraiya, Tsunade screamed out, although there was no annoyance in the voice, only mirth. Tsunade mirrored the smile on the face of her best friend before grimacing. Immediately noticing this, Jiraiya placed her back down in the chair. Is everything all right? Jiraiya questioned. Still from the high of having what felt like the weight of the world lifted off of her shoulders, had a radiating smile on her face. Yeah, it's just that I have to be careful with the stitches your stupid student gave me. Jiraiya chuckled. That's Godame-sama to you, Tsunade. For the first time in a long time, she let out a proper laugh. One that Jiraiya could tell wasn't faked at all. Yeah, I suppose he is. I bet both Kushina and Minato are proud of him. He's the youngest ever Kage out of any village, isn't he? What took over in just before turning 15? Well, I'm not sure about the other villages off the top of my head, but yeah, for Konoha he is by far the youngest. Yeah, I don't think they could be any prouder of who Naruto has become. Pride was emanating of Jiraiya as his godson was the youngest ever Hokage. A thought popped up into the head of Tsunade. By the way, how did Naruto know what to bribe me with if I lost the bet? Despite already having a good guess, she wanted to hear it from her friend. I said to myself, what would the greatest person in the history of medicine do if she was to improve the Konoha healthcare system? Then I told Naruto that what I thought you would do. Touched at the thought, as she didn't realize that Jiraiya knew her dream and succeeded in implementing it 30 years after she had originally proposed a draft version of the idea only to have it turned down. Her level of respect grew for Jiraiya tenfold with just a single statement. To think that he had remembered that after all of these years was something that she, admittedly, didn't expect of him. Thank you, it means a lot to me. Jiraiya smiled, although she was fairly certain that again, for the first time in a very long time, she saw a red tinge to his cheeks. As the night progressed, Jiraiya noticed that Tsunade had not touched a single drop of alcohol from the moment of realization. The night progressed, and before the couple of ninjas realized it, they were sitting side by side on the Hokage monument watching the sunrise. Jiraiya realized at one point that Tsunade had fallen asleep on his shoulder with a big smile on her face. Chapter 23. But I won't forget. Alright, kid, so just to get things clear, I am not staying here in Konoha because of that stupid bet that we made, Tsunade said with a look of annoyance on her face. She didn't want to admit it, but the whole reason why she was staying here in Konoha was due to the night before. It was the happiest time she had had in a very long time. Jiraiya made her feel alive again, and made her realize that the deal that Naruto had given her wasn't too bad, all things considered. I don't care what your reason is for serving Konoha as long as I don't have to question your loyalty, Naruto replied back. Now how do we go about improving the academy so that every single student is capable of using the mystical palm jutsu? It was one thing to have heard it from Jiraiya. It was another thing completely to hear it from the young Hokage. It was surreal for the blonde woman, as this was something that she had been striving for so long to achieve, and it was now finally coming to fruition. Then she remembered what her teammates said yesterday. Tsunade, the other reason why I need you to stay in Konoha is because of Naruto. Danzo is close to him, and Naruto is fairly malleable at the moment, and is being influenced by those around him. With me being the spy master for Konoha, I am not always in the village and can't keep an eye on what Danzo is going to do. Naruto also needs a female role model in his life. The only female in his life at the moment is his teammate, who is now a guardian ninja in the capital. Can you please be a role model for Naruto and guide him to do what is right? Shaking herself out of her musings, Tsunade spoke up. That's an awfully high standard to achieve, Gaki. Don't you think you are biting off a bit too much? Naruto shook his head. I'd rather aim for the sun and only reach the moon than to aim for the clouds and reach the clouds? Tsunade couldn't argue against that. She agreed in what Naruto was saying, and it would only further serve to benefit Konoha if their goal was to have every shinobi capable of using the mystical palm jutsu. Well, the main requirement for medical ninjutsu at a basic level is chakra control. You need to be able to mold chakra properly if you want to be able to perform the technique well. Past that point, you need to have in-depth knowledge on how the human body works. From there, a discussion took place about how effectively transition the ideals of Naruto and Tsunade into the academy curriculum. Halfway through the meeting, Naruto requested the academy director to come in and also participate in the conversation. After the grueling hours that he had been putting in at the office, Naruto finally had a bit of time available to do something that he had been needing to do for a long time. The draft for the new curriculum for the new academy had been finalized, with there being another look in a week's time before giving it. The Green had taken over at the hospital and had been viewing the structure of the hospital before making any changes, and the plan to allow civilians roles in the military was going well. They had just finished with the requirements for the security clearance required to get the job. With everything set in motion for change in Konoha, Naruto now had the freedom in his role to focus a bit more on his training. Enacting on this, the blonde Hokage in his private training made a small incision with a bone and let the blood seep out. After going through the required hand seals, Naruto planted his hands on the ground and channeled chakra into the ground. Can you please reverse summon me? I need to talk to Chrysalis-sama, Naruto said with a small bow. The scorpion did as much and reverse summoned Naruto to their realm. Ah, Naruto, how have you been? Did you manage to obtain the title of Hokage? It was no secret to Naruto after speaking with Jiraiya that summoned animals bragged to other races about the strength of their summoner, who was essentially their reputation in the human world. Having Naruto become the be very good for his summons. Yes, Chrysalis-sama, I have, which is why I have been very busy over the past month and a half and haven't been able to come here, Naruto said with a slight frown. He would have liked to spend more time here, but his other commitments had prevented him in being able to do so. That is alright, Naruto-san. You're the leader of thousands of people and they need you in this transitioning time. Now what is the reason that you came here for? The Sand King questioned. Naruto paused for a moment before taking a deep breath. I would like to learn about Senjutsu and the Scepter of Aghanim. The Scorpion King looked at Naruto for a moment. I see. Whilst I do believe you are ready, Naruto, you must realize the last summoner to reach full Senjutsu was over 300 years ago. It will not be easy. Naruto wasn't fazed by this at all, instead it only gave him even more motivation. That doesn't concern me, Chrysalis-sama. I don't mind how long it takes, all that matters to me is being able to protect Konoha to the best of my abilities. Proud of the answer, the Sand King spoke. Very well, Naruto, follow me. Naruto did just that and allowed the summon to guide into a private chamber, deep beneath the surface of the earth. In here is the Scepter of Aghanim. This is the pride of the Scorpion clan and our most prized jewel. Can you feel something different about this chamber? Naruto was in awe of the scepter in front of him. The main focal point was an oceanic blue crystal in the center of it, and Naruto couldn't help but wonder about it. I can definitely feel something different, but I am not sure what it is. One thing I do know is that it is radiating from that crystal inside the scepter. Indeed, Naruto-san, what you are feeling is nature chakra. The fact that you can feel it when you are exposed to it is a sign that you are capable of potentially using it. Now your first step of training is to meditate. Whilst not expecting that his first lesson was to meditate, Naruto was not going to question someone who obviously had a lot more experience on a topic that he had. He trusted those around him as the Hokage to help him make informed decisions. Then let's get to it, Naruto said with enthusiasm, as he had heard all sorts of awesome stories about senjutsu from the old perv and he wanted to try it out for himself. That was pretty awesome, Asuma said, affectionately stroking the hair of Kurenai who lay on his chest. It was fairly good, I must admit, the ever-reserved woman said to her partner. It was the first time in 6 weeks that the duo had been in the same place at the same time due to their conflicting schedules as jonin. Due to the invasion, they had been going on as many missions as possible to mitigate the damage done. That, in combination with the recent Chunin exams that happened, which Kurenai went to with her team, meant that the couple had not been spending as much time as they would have liked together. So what's it feel like having been the sensei to the Hokage? Damn good. It feels like the world is justifying me for being an awesome sensei. Got all 3 students promoted in their first Chunin exams, and then one of them became Hokage in 6 months. Kurenai rolled her eyes at the showboating. But don't you think he is a bit too young? I've been on missions with Naruto to know that he is a talented fighter, but 14 is a very young age to have the lives of thousands of people resting on your shoulders, the black-haired woman said with concern evident on her face. He may be. I guess only time will tell whether or not Naruto is too young to be the Hokage of Konoha. I do think that the support network around him will allow him to leverage the experience of those around him, though. But I do think that it is going to negatively impact Naruto. He is naturally an introverted person, and with both Ino and Choji going to the capital, Naruto doesn't have many friends here. That, including his new role, not giving him much time for socializing, could hamper his development as a person, Asuma said with a sigh. When do you Ino and Choji come back to Konoha? Kurenai questioned, knowing that Asuma missed his 2 other students. He had to think for a moment. 2.5 years, give or take. I believe that they signed up for a 3-year commitment. When they get back, it will help with Naruto having friends in the same age bracket. Unfortunately for his skill level, everyone else that's skilled is almost double his age. But what about Konohamaru and Sasuke? Aren't they at a similar level? I mean, weren't they also in that candidate program? The female jonin questioned as she moved her hand across the torso and towards the outstretched arm of her partner. Sasuke I am not sure about, but he is even more of antisocial than Naruto. Konohamaru, on the other hand, is taking the fact that Naruto became the Hokage and not him pretty hard. He doesn't really like hanging out with Naruto anymore, since it's a reminder of his failure. But that's not fair on Naruto. You should probably have a talk with him when you get back from your next mission. Yeah, I will, but before that, I have some other arrangements in place. As Asuma said this, he grabbed a handful of Kurenai's ass with a smirk on his face. A raised eyebrow was all he got in return before a smirk appeared on the beauty's face. It was now 6 weeks since his inauguration as the Hokage, and Naruto was in his office, looking over the paper in front of him. This looks very good. You guys have put in a lot of hard work. Ichiraku was proud of what his Hokage had said. The change in curriculum was something that didn't happen very often, so he was glad that he could take a part and shape the way how he best thought to teach kids, something he loved doing. Yes, this is very comprehensive. Tsunade, also in the room, stated in agreement. Despite not being here long, she was happy with the changes that were being made. From her point of view, the medical program started at the grassroots level. You couldn't just start it with Chunin and expect to get outstanding results. It was just like everything else in the world. The more effort that was put into something, the more it would flourish. The academy previously only taught students how to wrap bandages and create slings to hold a broken arm. Now, the new and improved course outline made it the mystical palm healing jutsu mandatory knowledge if you wanted to graduate from the academy. In fact, as she looked over the rest of the paper in front of her, the Senju couldn't help but be impressed with the ambition that Naruto had for the academy. The standards being set were quite high, but she thought that they were achievable. 1 offensive and 1 defensive C-rank ninjutsu of their respective element, a spar lasting 5 minutes in a taijutsu-only spar with a Chunin instructor using their new element-based taijutsu, resuscitating a fish with the mystic palm ninjutsu, 20 completed D-rank missions, and the ability to cast and dispel a C-rank genjutsu. This didn't even include the original metrics required to become a Genin ninja. What the new Hokage found great about these standards was that once the students graduated from the academy, they would be ready to take C-rank missions out of the village. He particularly liked the idea of having academy students perform D-rank missions instead of Genin. It would free up his force to do what they were trained to do, and it also allowed the academy students to learn valuable teamwork skills. They wouldn't get the money from the missions though, as that would be put back into the academy to reduce some of the cost of running such an expansive facility. The blonde knew, however, that with the requirements of the academy being much higher, it would be harder to graduate. There were two ways in which Naruto and the rest of the academy were going to attempt to combat this. The first was by lowering the age requirement to join the academy to 4 years, rather than 6. It would allow the students more time to gain competency in the required fields. The main way that they were going to combat the failure rate, though, was something radical which Naruto was very interested in seeing the results of. Instead of a grading system and moving on to the next topic when the allotted time had passed, the educational system in Konoha would model its curriculum of a competency-based rubric, rather than achievement. The greatest thing that Naruto learned from the civilian teachers that he had hired to oversee this was that when students are measured on grades, they care more about the grade rather than the actual learning that takes place in the classroom. With moving to a satisfactory/unsatisfactory model, it would hopefully eliminate the pressure to focus on grades and instead focus on the actual course content. Students would not move on to the next level in their training for that branch until they got a successfully completed mark from that respective teacher. In addition to this, Tsunade and Inoichi had both advised that the minimum graduation age regardless of ability needed to be 13. This was due to the physiological and mental development being occurring at the time, and Naruto trusted his advisors. He didn't want a repeat of Itachi. Even Kakashi, someone who was a great, loyal shinobi, had significant issues mentally, which Inoichi put a significant part of it down to the age in which he started at the entered the shinobi war. Well, we now have new curriculum to implement next week. I wish you all of the best, as the future of Konoha is in your hands, Naruto said with a proud smile on his face, something that was mirrored by the teachers. After the day, which included approving the new curriculum at the academy as well as the new plan for the hospital, Naruto went back to his clan compound. Now that 6 weeks had passed since he was the Hokage, Naruto could finally say that a tiny bit of the pressure that came with the job had been lifted. After the conclusion of every day, he got that much more confident in his ability to lead the village. One thing that had happened quickly after becoming the Hokage was that Naruto terminated his sponsorship deal with the milk company. When signing the contract, never in a million years did he think that he would become the Hokage. With times changing and finding himself in the role, Naruto decided to end the partnership due to it looking bad on his image as a leader. That plus the amount of money he received in his salary was much more than what he was getting paid. It was a hit financially, but Naruto wasn't too concerned. As far as he cared, as long as he did well as the Hokage and kept his job, then his financial situation was all sorted. It was a weird feeling for Naruto. Ever since 6 weeks ago, all of his financial dreams had been accomplished. He was earning the type of money that 2 years ago, he could only dream about earning. In front of him was the proof of that. The temple wasn't just an empty work site anymore. Thanks to him being the Hokage, the civilians he had contracted out to do the job dedicated more resources and time to complete the job sooner. The temple now had walls and a roof. It was finally starting to look like a place of worship, and Naruto couldn't be happier. His clan was getting rebuilt, and this was merely the first step on a long list of plans that Naruto had for the Uzumaki clan. Soon, within 3 months according to the builders, Naruto would be able to move in and live in one of the spare rooms in the temple. It would be during this time that Naruto would build a house also on the land that was now the Uzumaki clan. Despite the good work of the civilians, Naruto wanted to pull his own weight, so he did as much as time and skill permitted before he then went to train with his summoned clan. "You can come out now. I know you are there," Naruto said whilst preparing his bloodline limit. He wanted to see who it was that dared to come to his home and uninvited and potentially attack him. "Very well then. The voice replied before making itself present. Itachi, Naruto said with a sharp intake of breath. The second he saw the man, he gasped. The most surprising feature of the man was that he was not dressed in his Akatsuki cloak that Jiraiya had mentioned was a trademark of the group. Instead, he was wearing an ANBU outfit. What do you want? Why are you here and why are you dressed like that? Naruto asked. What I want is for you to be aware of the truth. I want to know whether or not Danzo has told everything or if he and the rest of the elders plan to have used you as a puppet Hokage. Danzo-sensei, what did he do? I have heard from multiple people that he is a dangerous man but have received any proof and we run on innocent until proven guilty. Naruto said with a frown on his face. A noticeable frown appeared on the face of Itachi which said a lot, given his demeanor most of the time. Danzo is your sensei? That is troubling that he is your sensei. Tell me Naruto, have you heard of Root? When the young Kage in front of him shook his head, it was clear to him that Danzo wanted Naruto to be a puppet just from the little interaction that he had had with Naruto. Itachi then proceeded to tell Naruto what Root was and how much the organization had done to both positively but mostly negatively affect the village. To say the least, Naruto was shocked and infuriated when he heard this. Despite Itachi one of Konoha's greatest ever criminals, nothing he said gave Naruto the impression that he was lying. He didn't know how to process the fact that there was a separate ANBU division that worked for someone other than the Hokage. It was definitely not something that he would stand for, and he was going to see what he could do. Now Naruto-kun, for the real reason as to why I am here. It's clear to me that they plan on not telling you certain events that took place. As the Hokage of Konoha, you are responsible for all people in the village and you have to protect it from both external and internal threats. Naruto merely raised an eyebrow at the comment about internal threats. It was no surprise to Naruto who Itachi was referring to when he said this. Pausing, Itachi then spoke up quietly, but what he said was deafening. I did not go rogue. I did everything on that night under orders from the Sandaime Hokage and the advisors Hamura Mitokado, Koharu Yuditane and Danzo Shimura. Naruto was gobsmacked. He wouldn't have guessed something like that. Well, fuck me. That's one hell of a bombshell to drop. I can't imagine what it must have been like going through all of that. I'm sorry for everything that you had to endure. A small part of Itachi was pleased at the fact that Naruto's first thought was for his well-being during that time. It was clear to the former Konoha ninja that Naruto wasn't just someone who followed the orders of Danzo. The will of fire was on clear display. Thank you, Hokage-sama. It was not an easy decision to follow through on, despite knowledge of what was about to come. You see, as the Uchiha clan had been planning a coup d'état due to the excessive blame placed on them due to the Kyuubi attack. I see. Naruto replied back, all of this information being a lot to take in. One thing that I do wish to ask but you don't have to answer is why is Sasuke alive? As much as I am grateful that you left him alive as we became friends, if the plan was to exterminate the entire clan, why not get rid of him as well? That's simple. Because I care for my brother. I beg to be able to let Sasuke remain alive as he was innocent in everything, and my hope is for Sasuke to restore the honor of the Uchiha clan, build it the way it should have been built in the first place. The role of Hokage was slowly becoming something that Naruto could say that he was getting the hang of. Of course, there was a long time before he could say that he was proficient, and he knew that he was never going to be able to say that he was perfect. Naruto could finally say that he had time to relax and be a human instead of just being a Kage. The Uzumaki had gone to a ramen restaurant called Ichiraku's finally. He had been meaning to go to it for a while now, Jiraiya having mentioned it was a place that his parents visited frequently. Safe to say he was now a convert, and was keen to have some more. He had a hard time trying to put on weight given how much energy he'd burned training and going through puberty. Ramen could help make it easier for the blonde-haired teenager to eat more calories throughout the day. Tsunade had said that if he wanted to make the most of his training after doing a physical on him, then he had to eat as much as possible during these crucial years. Puberty, as far as she was considered, was free anabolic steroids. Given the amount of testosterone running through the body, he needed to make the most of it and put on as much muscle as possible. As he was walking out of the restaurant, Naruto spotted Team 10, his friends from the academy. "Hey guys, how's it going? How's the recovery going along, Lee?" Naruto questioned with excitement. Flames of youth were burning brightly. "Yash Naruto-kun, I am doing great. Guy-sensei has been helping me out, and I am now getting back to where I was before the Chunin exams. Soon I shall be able to resume using weights and training. If I cannot do that, then I will do 500 push-ups, and if I cannot do that, then I will do 200 pull-ups." Lee replied with a great big grin on his face. Given the fact that he had a whole entire new skeletal system that had to be attached to all of the tendons, it was nothing short of outstanding progress for the body who had been told his career as a ninja was long over. "That's great. I can't wait for you to get better back to normal so we can spar." Before Naruto could continue down that path, Neji spoke up. "Naruto, do you mind if we have a spar?" "Come on, Neji. He's the Hokage. He doesn't have time for us measly peasants." Tenten said, half joking, half serious, given that the last time she saw Naruto, who she was acquaintances with at the academy, was during his inauguration. Annoyed by this, Naruto replied. He didn't want to distance himself from his friends, it was just that the role of Hokage was one that involved a lot of time and effort. "No, I'm cool with that. I haven't been able to loosen up all day. Do you want to join in as well?" Naruto questioned, and the boy grinned as his teeth shined. "Yash Naruto-kun." Admittedly, Neji wasn't too thrilled when he heard this, as it came across as Naruto diminishing his skills. Sure, he didn't believe in fate as much due to his defeat at the hands of Kimimaro, but for Naruto to think so little of his skills compared to when they were in the academy, well, he was eager to prove Naruto wrong. The fact that he was the Kage of the village was forgotten at this point in time. Tenten was keen to join in, as well as she wanted to test herself against someone who was supposed to be one of the top 5 ninjas in the world. The fact that he was hot was also an added bonus that she was keen on exploring. Chapter 24. All the Ones That I Love. Time seemed to pass by fairly quickly for the blonde Uzumaki ever since his promotion to the rank of Hokage. With his busy schedule filled to the brim with meetings, assigning missions, politics, and not to mention his training, there was little time for a social life for Naruto. Thankfully for him, that was about to change. He had now finished building the temple on the Uzumaki land, and it was better than ever. In addition to that, the mansion that commenced shortly after, which was to be the house of the clan head, was well under construction. It had 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, with the master bedroom and ensuite overlooking the backyard and pool, a private study for Naruto, 2 entertaining areas, and a deck overlooking Konoha with a swimming pool just below. Once it was finished built, he planned on having a few of his friends over for some feasts. He had been meaning to catch up with them for a while now. It was hard though, given the tough transitioning time that Konoha was going through, Sunagakure getting agitated at the lack of bijou and being on the losing end of a couple of fights with IWA. IWA also being restless on the borders of Konoha, ever since they found out about Naruto being the son of the Yondaime. In addition to this, the Mizugakure didn't like the fact that he was now the Hokage, as it meant that one of their most infamous bloodlines was now in the hands of an enemy village. Last but not least, there was the reformation that was scheduled to happen anytime soon. It was the reason why Jiraiya was stationed inside the village indefinitely for the time being, much to the man's dismay. "So Takeo, are you sure you are ready for this? Your grandfather isn't here, so please be honest with me," Naruto said as he stared into the eyes of the academy student in front of him. There was no sign of doubt or fear. "Yes, Hokage-sama. This is something that will need to be done for the village, and if there is a burden needed, then I am willing to endure it for the prosperity of Konoha," the black-haired boy resolutely responded as he stared into the eyes of his Kage. Naruto nodded. The decision he was about to make was not one that was easy. There were many variables at play, but there was at least the solace in the fact that Naruto was not giving this burden to someone who was unwilling. "All right then, Takeo, before we make the final decision, I want you to have one spar with me. Sure, I have read all of the reports of you from the academy, but I want to see how well that all translates to a real-life combat situation." Takeo merely nodded. He then sprinted off towards Naruto with his katana blade outstretched in one hand whilst his other one went to his pouch and flung 2 shuriken at the blonde. Naruto could faintly see the outline of wind-laced chakra on the blades and was impressed. It was clear to see that the new training plan for the academy was going well if this was the outcome. He was not naive enough to think that the boy's shinobi education was solely due to the academy. The kid's grandfather was Danzo after all, and when he was the main role model given his parents dying in conflict, even if he wasn't around that much. Naruto formed a bone blade in response from his forearm and parried away the shuriken with ease. It didn't take long before he had to block the next attack from Takeo as he blocked the swipe of the sword. I'm impressed. We don't teach one how to channel their element into their weapon. It seems like you have been practicing very hard. You've still got a long way to go though with your element. Naruto replied as he channeled his own fire-natured chakra into the sword and watched it turn ablaze. So that's the level I need to get to, Takeo thought to himself with renewed vigor as he took the powerful hit to his sword. The vibrations came reverberating into his hands. Note to self, evade, not dodge. The strength he can output is impressive. Takeo dodged the next swipe and countered it with a sweeping leg kick. He quickly followed up with upward strike with his blade. Naruto saw this coming though and moved out of the way after jumping up over the outstretched leg. Naruto was impressed so far with the ability on show from Takeo. His kenjutsu was good, and so was his control over his element. His speed was above average but not at the same level that either he or Lee were at that age. The accuracy displayed with shuriken was nothing less than expected from someone whose grandfather was Danzo, a man who was big on the basics. Putting space between the two, Naruto quickly went through hand seals with one hand and let off a small fireball that he fully expected Takeo to dodge. He wanted to see the reaction. It was clear for both of them to see that a head-on kenjutsu fight wasn't going to work. Futon de Tapa, wind release, great breakthrough. The academy student called out as he channeled chakra into his mouth and breathed out the air. Naruto had to take a step back, it was that powerful. If he had to, he could have stood there and taken it on full bore, but there was no real need to do that. Having seen enough, in addition to his very busy schedule, Naruto decided it was time to end this. With the bones still in his hand from the beginning, he moved in a speed that Takeo couldn't follow and appeared behind the boy, the bone pressed distinctly into his neck. That was good, Takeo. I'm certain that you will become a great shinobi as you grow up. This fight is over though. Takeo for his part nodded, but on the inside he was bursting with pride. Despite trying to emulate the stoicism of his grandfather, getting praise from a Kage no less was nothing short of making the boy giddy. Thanks, Hokage-sama, that means a lot to me. I'll be sure to make you proud and be of service to Konoha. The boy bowed. If you keep going the way you are, you definitely will. Anyway, see ya. Naruto responded before quickly using the Shunshin with small embers left in his wake. I'm ready for the next meeting now. Naruto called out to his receptionist. There was no acknowledgement except for a few seconds later when the door opened. In walked a lady who didn't seem much older than he was, and he had to admit that she was very attractive. Short blonde hair that just below her jawline was accompanied by piercing blue eyes. She also had a curvaceous figure with creamy white skin. The blonde-haired lady in front of him was wearing a black long-sleeved dress that stopped just before her knees. Despite the fact that she had no cleavage showing, Naruto could tell that she was very blessed genetically. In fact, the person in front of him reminded Naruto of a young Tsunade. To what do I owe the pleasure of your visit, miss? Naruto trailed off as he gestured for the woman in front of him to take a seat. Once sat down, the woman looked Naruto directly in the eyes. My name is Samui and I am a Chunin from Kumogakure. Straight and to the point was Samui, as when she said this, she noticed that Naruto's relaxed demeanor quickly turned into business mode. I see, Samui. Well, my name is Naruto Uzumaki and it is nice to meet you. The Hokage replied before extending his hand out. A deft handshake was shared between the two that Samui let her fingers trail along Naruto's palm as it was released. Now what can I do for you? It is not normal that I get visitors from Kumogakure in my office. Naruto questioned. He still felt odd calling the room that they were in his office, but it was something that he was sure he would have the hang of saying shortly. Hokage-sama, I have been requested by Raikage-sama to see if the possibility of a diplomatic envoy could be stationed within Konoha and vice versa. This is a request that has also been personally desired also by the daimyo of the Land of Lightning. He is also in the process formally approaching the High no Kuni Fire daimyo with this proposal, Samui reported as she handed the 2 scrolls in her hand to Naruto. The Hokage could easily see the official seals and emblems from the Lightning daimyo. Internally he groaned. Seeing those made it that much harder to say no, as the daimyo was a very powerful man. There was also his own that he had to consider. I see. This is not something that can be considered lightly, and it will take time for an answer to be reached. As you can imagine, this is something that will be hard for Konoha and in particular the Hyuga clan to agree to. Additionally, how can we not expect for actions that have happened in the past to happen once more? After all, Kimimaro does have a track record of kidnapping young girls from Konoha. A firm stare was given when Naruto said this, and he looked directly into the eyes of Samui. Despite her calm exterior, Samui gulped. The stare that she was getting was unnerved her, to say the least. Those blue eyes made it was like staring into the ice wall that she was so well known for back home. I can't speak on behalf of former actions taken place by Kimimaro, as I was just entering the academy when the most recent one took place and don't know enough details. What I can say though will hopefully ease your fears of anything like that happening again. The intended belief from the Raikage and the Land of Lightning daimyo is that if it is okay, I will become the diplomatic envoy between Konoha and Kimimaro. I personally find the actions of kidnapping for bloodline usage to be an incredibly immoral action, and it is something that I refuse to do, Samui resolutely replied. She didn't approve of the actions made by the Raikage to steal children, but she couldn't make him look bad. She had to be careful with what she said. Thank you for that. It's a start to repairing the fractured relationship between the 2 villages, Naruto responded before opening up the 2 scrolls from Samui. He spent 3 minutes reading the messages. Thank you for these. Now, as I said, I will not be able to make these decisions right away. Seeing a dismissal, Samui nodded. I don't expect you to come to a decision right now, Hokage-sama. Thank you for your time, Samui said as the 2 of them got up, and as she gave the teenager in front of her a handshake, she looked at his lips and the tiniest of smirks appeared on her face. It didn't hurt that he was quite attractive. Inside the private training ground of the Hokage, Naruto was found working through his training. He was in the midst of sparring against 2 of his own jutsus. Leoric, a creation made 6 months ago, a skeleton with a sword and shield that can take the utmost punishment and keep resurrecting himself. Clinks the Bone Fletcher, a crafty and dangerous skeleton with a fire inside of him able to fire off arrows of bone lit on fire. Each time he used the jutsu, the summons became better as he had more knowledge on how to get the most out of them. Naruto had been briefly in contact with Ino on how to impart independent thought onto the jutsus he was creating. He was regretting that at this point, as he had managed to barely dodge an incoming attack from Clinks. The damn long-range specialist was able to fire the arrows at a rapid pace, and they were damn hard to dodge. He had to do that though because they were even more painful. Standing right in the path of Leoric, who was swinging his sword. Shit! Naruto exclaimed and fired off his drilling finger grenades at the Skeleton King. Leoric brought down his shield and protected himself from the damage from the explosions. Not even waiting past the point where the smoke had been cleared, Leoric sprinted off to Naruto and engaged in a fierce battle. Bringing up the bones his forearm, Naruto blocked the sword and slashed his other arm into the exposed ribcage. This did not bother the Skeleton King one bit as he had no flesh. All the while this was happening, he continually had to dodge incoming arrows from Clinks. Raisin Shuryuden! Spiraling Grenade! Naruto called out as he formed a white sphere of bone with something inside of it in his hand before shoving it in the chest of Leoric and watched it detonate. It exploded and completely eviscerated the Skeleton King. All bones fell onto the ground, and if there was flesh, there would be none by now. Naruto was panting and held up his palm in the direction of Clinks, requesting that training was over for now. The spiraling grenade was a technique that he was still working on, so it took a decent amount of focus and chakra to get it right. I see the potential for all of your techniques to rapidly improve with Sage Mode, Naruto-kun, Crixalis stated. He had been watching the fight with the two summons with Naruto. The Sand King had a vested interest in watching Naruto create those two fighters out of bone and had a part in their creation. He had two friends from long ago that were much the same. Yeah, Naruto said as he straightened up. Leoric at this point was recollecting himself and came back to life. He immediately noticed the fight had stopped. I've managed to get Sage Mode down when I am sitting down meditating next to Aghanim's scepter. I've been working on gathering nature chakra outside of the summoning realm. The Scorpion King nodded. Becoming a sage was never an easy task and only the best ever managed to do. Given the pressures on Naruto and the amount of time he had to practice on his training, he was well on his way. The fact that his body was in tip-top physical condition only further served to help in balancing the foreign chakra. Also, I've worked out that I can only handle the Raisin Shuryudan when I have my full exoskeleton, otherwise my arm just gets shredded to the bone. For now, focus on getting Sage Mode as much as possible. At this point your ninjutsu and your taijutsu are already good, especially your taijutsu. You need to reach S rank status as quickly as possible to become a threat to the big hitters in the world. It was one thing to have it muttered by other jonin in the village. It was another thing entirely when your summon boss says the same thing. Being an elite jonin by 15 years old was impressive, but obviously it wasn't enough in the eyes of many. Right. I have been taking special focus to expand my chakra reserves and build as much as possible recently. I heard from Tsunade-san that puberty is the best time to do this due to hormones, Naruto said as he reseated his exoskeleton jutsu. The blonde-haired boy was gassed and was looking forward to some food and sleep. The conversation soon ended with the boss summon of the Scorpion clan going back home, and it left Naruto by himself. With his stomach giving him orders, Naruto headed out to get some food. If he wanted to build more muscle for his taijutsu and build more chakra reserves for his ninjutsu, then he needed to eat. There was a bar that also served a whole bunch of food nearby that he thought he would go to. Admittedly, he didn't really see the appeal in the place, but he knew that it was a frequent spot for ninjas to go out to celebrate a night off. He wanted to boost his perception with his ninja force and the greater population of Konoha. As he walked in, Naruto eyed out a spot at the bar and tapped a person on the shoulder. "Excuse me, is it okay if I sit here?" Turning around, the person was shocked to find that it their boss. "Of course, Hokage-sama. Please sit here," Hana Inuzuka mentioned as she moved herself over slightly to give the Kage more room. "You don't have to call me Hokage-sama, I'm off duty. Please call me Naruto-san," Naruto replied with a smile on his face. A tinge of red appeared on the face of Hana that wasn't due to her clan markings when she looked at the face of Naruto. She saw his blue eyes and large smile. She also happened to be 3 daiquiris in at this point. "Okay then, Naruto-san. So what brings you here?" As he listened to Hana's question, he noticed that she was quite attractive. Normally, he only saw her in her medic uniform as she was reporting about the medical training she was helping out Tsunade-san at the hospital and the academy with. Now she was wearing a white sleeveless blouse with a v-neck that showed off a fair amount of cleavage. She was also wearing a black skirt. All of this combined with the prominent red lipstick she had applied made her quite stunning. "Well, I just finished my training for the day and now need to get some food." It was clockwork at this point that his stomach grumbled and Hana giggled and placed her hand on Naruto's forearm. The blonde raised an eyebrow but didn't make any mention of it. "Alright then, you have to get the pork knuckle. It's the best. And what are you going to get to drink?" Hana exuberantly mentioned, to which Naruto nodded with a small grin on his face. "Okay, I'll get the pork knuckle. As for a drink, well, I'm going to be getting a chocolate milkshake." Hana was shocked when she heard this. "What? No alcohol?" Naruto solemnly nodded. "Can't drink on the job." It was the go-to excuse that he always used when he didn't want to drink alcohol. He had a busy day tomorrow with meetings in regards to the creation of a Jinchuriki, and he couldn't attend those in any form of inebriation. Sure, it was only one drink, but that could lead to a rabbit hole that he never claws his way out of. Ah, that sucks. Guess I will just have to have one for you. 2 daiquiris, please, bartender. Hana shouted out to the bartender, who nodded. Then he noticed the person sitting down next to one of his regulars. Hokage-sama, thank you for coming here. Is there anything that I can get for you? Naruto then rattled off his order. Normally they didn't serve milkshakes, but when your Hokage orders it, you do. He was going to have to send one of the retired ninjas on a quick errand to go get one from the ice shop nearby. As the bartender walked away to go and give the order to the kitchen, Naruto turned to Hana. So how is everything going? Naruto asked the open-ended question to allow Hana to talk about whatever she wanted, and then he could go from there. Well, training is going great. I'm getting close to becoming a special jonin in the medical arts thanks to hanging around Tsunade and picking her brain. The academy is going great, as well as the kids are eager to learn about how to heal one another. My little brother Kiba got promoted to Chunin recently, so I have to get this rank of special jonin so I can still be top dog over him, Hana said as she realized she had started rambling and didn't want to annoy the Kage. The patient look he had on his face made her blush, as despite him being an incredibly powerful shinobi, the way he was paying attention to her made her feel as if they were the only 2 people in the room. That's great. I remember Kiba. I gave him the flak jacket 2 weeks ago after the trip to Taki. He was also in my first Chunin exams, haha. He's improved quite a bit since then. Yes, Tsunade-bachan is great at helping people despite her being rough around the edges. Ha ha ha, Hana giggled once more and then took the last sip of her daiquiri, shortly before the bartender handed the 2 she just ordered. You call the strongest woman in the world Bachan? That must have gone down well the first time you called her that. There was a smirk on the face of Naruto. As well as you can imagine. She punched me with her super strength the first time I called her that. I had bruises from that for 2 weeks straight that I had to get my assistant to put makeup over as Tsunade refused to heal the damage, haha. Why is that so funny? Surely that would have hurt. Hana mused with a smile showing her canines. It hurt a fucking lot, Naruto exclaimed, surprising the Inuzuka woman, only further serving to confuse the brunette. The reason why I'm laughing is because of what happened to give me the nickname Bachan to her. Come on. You can't just tell me that and not give me the full story, Hana replied with mirth, as she once again placed her hand on Naruto, this time on his thigh that was closest to her. I had to go speak to Jiraiya, who is my godfather and essentially a grandfather in all but blood. I didn't let him know beforehand that I was coming over, and when I got there, I found Tsunade kissing down the chest of Jiraiya in a, let's say, rather revealing outfit. The smirk on the face of Jiraiya as he noticed me told me that this was not a one-time thing. Ah ha 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 ha. Hana started laughing and she inadvertently pressed her cleavage into the side of Naruto and squeezed his leg as she was laughing. The blonde Hokage would have had to be blind if he didn't notice this. At this point in time, he was insanely hungry, and that was more important. Here you go, here is the food and drinks. Is there anything else that we can do for you, Hokage-sama? The bartender as he brought out the food. No thank you, this looks great though. After this a silence settled between the 2 with occasional words being said as Naruto focused on the food in front of him, whilst Hana focused on the 2 daiquiris. Once his stomach was full and the glass the milkshake was in was empty, Naruto turned to Hana. Hey Hana, I have a busy day tomorrow so I have to leave soon. Would you like to come back to my place and to have coffee? Naruto returned the favor as he said this as he placed his hand on the top of, verging on inner thigh of Hana. Hana let off a smirk that showed her canines. It'd be my pleasure, Naruto-kun. She thought she had been pretty forward and direct with the moves she made earlier, and as Naruto was eating, she was wondering whether or not he was either naive or not interested. This squashed all of those thoughts. Picking up her drink, Hana finished the rest of her drink, which impressed Naruto. The Kage placed money on the table to cover his food and drink whilst Hana did the same for her tab. As she got up off of the bar stool, Hana stumbled 2 steps as she didn't realize how drunk she was. Naruto quickly grabbed onto her wrist to stabilize the girl. Let's get out of here, shall we? the Uzumaki questioned, and he got a nod in response. The duo soon found themselves at Naruto's home, and he immediately kissed Hana on the lips, to which she responded greedily. "What, no coffee? I'm disappointed," Hana mentioned before she kissed Naruto again. "As if you were ever interested in coffee. We both know what you want," Naruto replied with a smirk on his face, and brazenly groped one of the ass cheeks of the Inuzuka with his left hand and pulled her firmly into his body. She moaned in pleasure as she felt the erection, and she wasn't disappointed at all. In fact, she was very much excited. "The question is whether or not you can give me what I want," the brunette said as she ran her hand down the chest of Naruto and lightly grazed the clothes covering his manhood. "I'm not sure about what you want, but I can definitely give you what you need." With one hand on her arse, Naruto used the other one to trail up the white sleeveless blouse and let it rest just before her breast. His thumb ran up the cup of her bra and found something prodding out of the fabric and run his thumb over it. "Ugh!" Hana moaned, which was all Naruto needed to continue what he was doing. Each time he did it, his hand got more brazen, and soon, he was cupping her breast with his hand, kissing her jawline and making his way ever so slowly down the valley of her exposed chest. The hand that was once on Hana's ass had moved towards the hem of her shirt, and slowly started pulling the blouse up. Naruto let go of her breasts enough so that he could pull the garment up and over them. Hana released her arms up in the air, making it easy for Naruto to take it off. The second it was off, Naruto threw it to the ground and grabbed the wrists of Hana that were still in the air roughly. Not sure what was about to happen, the Inuzuka's heart started racing. The Hokage of Konoha slammed his prey into the wall, and watched with glee as her chest bounced back up at him. With her hands up in the air, the brunette was at the mercy of Naruto, and she absolutely loved it. Naruto made it so that one hand was holding two of Hana's hostage. It was hot because whilst she was under his mercy, she knew that she could break out of the rather loose hold Naruto had on her body. She didn't have any plan of doing that anytime soon. With the hand free, Naruto moved it to the back strap of the creamy white bra that Hana was wearing. It took 3 goes, but it was undone. Naruto released Hana's hands and allowed the garment to fall to the ground before quickly grasping her hands and pressing them above her head and her body back into the wall. A moan of anticipation escaped her lips as she waited with bated breath of what was about to happen. Wow! Naruto couldn't help but marvel at the first pair of breasts that he had seen in real life. Without wasting time, Naruto moved his mouth to one of the exposed nipples and ever so slowly licked it. The moan of pleasure he got from Hana further served to increase his actions, as he became more confident in his abilities. Getting impatient, Hana spoke up through the pleasure. "I need more, Naruto-kun, you need to give me more." She ground her hips hard into the throbbing erection pressed into her. She broke out of the hold and started undoing the shirt of Naruto, very much pleased with his muscular physique. "Turn around," Naruto called out as Hana had her hands on her skirt and was about to pull it down. A smirk appeared on her face, and she did as she was commanded. "Yes, Hokage-sama. Anything for you, Hokage-sama," the Inuzuka woman replied as she bent over as she took of the skirt, and emphasized sticking her butt back as she took it down. It was clear for Naruto to see the white lacy thong that had a significant wet patch on it. When she turned around, Hana found Naruto naked and fully erect. "Yes, you can definitely give me what I want and need," Hana said as she motioned forward and deftly caught the condom that Naruto chucked her. Before putting it on her kage, Hana quickly took off her G-string. "Where's your bedroom?" The duo quickly made their way there, and Naruto was excited to say the least. The Chunin fell onto the bed first facing Naruto, and watched as he climbed between her legs. Hana didn't think much of it as she grabbed Naruto's penis, but for Naruto, this was the first time someone other than himself had touched it. It was exhilarating. Once the condom was placed on, Hana made a motion for Naruto to stick it in. "Ugh, that feels so good, Naruto-kun," Hana moaned out as she felt the penis enter her body. Naruto was marveling the sensation of sex and could definitely now see why Jiraiya was so in love with it. "You're so wet, Hana-chan," Naruto replied as he pushed all the way in until his hips were touching hers. "You made me this way, Hokage-sama. Feel how wet you made me." Now stop fucking teasing me and fuck me! The Chunin demanded of her Hokage. Hearing the name Hokage-sama made Naruto grin and further served to turn him on. He liked being in a position of power. Pulling his hips back, he guided his cock back inside of the pussy. Each thrust increased the pace until the duo found a steady rhythm. Both were making noises showcasing how much they enjoyed it. Yes! Just like that, Hokage-sama! Keep doing that, I'm going to come soon! Hana exclaimed. She had moved her hand down to her clit during the sex and fervently rubbed herself as she neared her orgasm. Alcohol only made the woman even hornier. I'm getting real close too, Hana-chan. Naruto panted as since this was his first time, his stamina wasn't the greatest. The sensations he was feeling were getting all too intense. Keep going, Naruto-kun, keep going. I'm getting so close that you can't stop. I need you! Hearing that was like poison as what little resistance Naruto had left was gone, and he moaned harshly as he came deep into the condom. This tipped over Hana as she let out all of her pent-up horniness, and convulsed around the cock inside of her. Her toes curling, her body spasming, and she dug her nails deep into the back of Naruto and heard him hiss from the pain. She didn't care though, as she had a great orgasm. That was intense. Hana nodded with a big grin on her face. Yep, I haven't had one of them in a while. Is it okay if I use your toilet? Yeah, sure, Naruto mentioned despite the fact that he was not fully with it. He was now coming to the realization that he was no longer a virgin, and it felt pretty damn good. We can do this sometime soon, yeah? Hana questioned. She had gotten dressed and was at the front door looking back at Naruto. For sure. Naruto agreed. He was keen to experience that again. Okay then, and see ya, Hokage-sama, Hana said before kissing her boss one final time before heading home. And that concludes the final part of this story. Thank you for spending your time here at Ichiraku Ramen and listening all the way to the end. Your support helps keep these stories alive and allows the shinobi world to continue through new adventures and alternate timelines. If you enjoyed The Burning Bone, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. Once again, full credit goes to Ninjaa, the original writer of this story. If you would like to read the original version, you can find the link to the story in the description below. Let me know in the comments what story you would like to hear next. Until the next time, stay safe, and I'll see you again at Ichiraku Ramen.